welcome to the podcast, Andrew. Huge fan. We were just
Me
talking there,
too.
and I don't want to destroy your flow there because I like what you were saying. So we're gonna go right. I want you to lead right back into what you're saying about
It was
riding for
from
me.
the beginnings. I mean, what better place to start than the beginning, right, Joey?
Okay, okay,
Um,
you're right. Let's
and
let's.
what I was kind of diving into there was I you know what, I'm just going to dive in because and people are going to go, where are we? What's going on? But I always wanted to be a personality rider. Right from the get-go, I understood that you needed more. And I started watching the generation where, yeah, you could get $100,000 contract just for doing 360s off cat tracks and filming it. And that was awesome. I loved that. But then we moved into like this era where there was way more riders and way more skill and way more big things happening. So I knew that you had to bring like something else. And plus all the riders I admired their personalities. Like everyone could shred hard, who was up. Well, not everybody. Some people sucked. I don't know how they did it. They had a shoe in, but then yeah. So I was always trying to get my sponsors to like run face shots or head shots just so I could get out there, get my face out there, get my personality out there, and then just then they could find the riding later. I don't know why I wanted to do it in that order, but I had a direction really early off. I enjoyed marketing. I understood it. I always did everything by myself too. I always found it was harder to get an agent than it was to get a sponsor. So what the F is the point of that? Agents won't even take you unless you can instantly make them $1 million. So it was impossible for me. I was outspoken and I swore a lot and talked about dirty little things. So that was never going to happen. And so I had to, adapt. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I feel like at that time frame there was similar riders, or maybe not similar, but using their personalities to drive a successful career. Like you could think of like Mark Frank or Mikey LeBlanc, like very personable, Travis Parker, and those personalities. They also had like interesting skill sets too. I felt like there was always a couple Americans that would never be the best. Andy Forgash is a great, like, I always liked his riding so much, but like it was driven. I think my like for him was driven because I liked his personality so much. Similar to you. I was like, I love your personality so much. And I also like that your snowboarding was one of the most unique forms of snowboarding. I never knew what you would do every year was
That's
like.
a good way to explain it because I wasn't that good.
I totally disagree. I think you just looked at snowboarding differently.
I could keep up, but that was it. It was like, I honestly don't think I was extremely talented on board. Yes, I was maybe in that upper 10% of like Canadians who go to the hill, but it was really about, I had so much time to get good at all those tricks and stuff. And, I'm not saying I even would touch the riders of today as far as technical abilities, but it was balls. It's just balls. I'm going to start this right at the beginning. And I think I had toxoplasty. Have you heard of this toxoplasty?
No.
It's like, you've never heard of this?
No.
It's like they say maybe a quarter of humans are infected with it. It's a parasite. And I'm convinced I was infected with this at a young age because what it is, all parasites have like this 3-host system. And they really only use the first host to get to this last host so that it can poop it out and go through the feet of another host to get back into to be eaten and then pooped out again. So whatever, pooping, vomiting, whatever you want to call it. It's a parasite. It's a 3-way life system. And this toxoplasma, what it does is it gets into mice and rats and it affects their brains and makes them not afraid of anything. So if you go online and like research this really cool parasite, they don't run. They're not afraid of cats anymore. They charge at cats and cats obviously eat them. And what this parasite is trying to do is get into the gut biome of a cat so that it can reproduce and get pooped out and then start its life cycle over by going in through, I don't know if it's the feet or the belly of a mouse again. And it's cool, but it basically takes all the fear away from these rats. And you can watch these videos of these mice just charging cats.
But the rat's fearlessness is genius because the parasite wants to reproduce. So it's like it's like a fearless genius, which is exactly what you are.
And the mouse is out of control. So was I. I always said a gentleman always tries it twice. And I did. And most of the time I couldn't land it the second time either. And it was like death defying. But there had to be some toxoplasmy somewhere in the mix, because like I look back at that stuff now and I'm still like shit, I was thinking about you yesterday because I went on a nice hike with my family and it was up this ridiculously deep canyon. And I went there with Fikowski, who was my filmer most of my life. And we were looking for the most death-defying stunts that we could photograph and film. And we found this canyon, and we always said we'd come back and do it. You know, oh, I'm going to do that one day. We've all done that a million times and never do. But I just saw this rideable log ride across this canyon with 150-foot drop into this churning, disgusting, gin clear water at the bottom. And I'm like, I'm not even joking. I'm sitting there with both my kids going, I wonder if I could get on that this winter. I'm going to get on this. And it's even like it's this old forest fire fallen down tree, and you can even see a buckle in the middle of the tree. And you know that tree's got like maybe 2 more years before it falls on its own, but it's going to hold snow. It's in like this really cool part of the Kootenay Mountains. And it's like, I want to do this again. And it's just like, it's all driven by like a desire for, like, the final reward is just having a gorgeous photo of this like disgustingly scary event. And I love that. And that's
which photographer would you bring to document it? Like Dan Hudson?
I take my own now. I've been taking my own for a lot of years now. And by now I say, I don't mean the last 10 years, but I would set up my own, but I would have to bring a really good photographer for this one, because I would call this the most high consequence line I've ever seen. And so for that, I thought of like lowering flashes and doing little bursts throughout the canyon, because it's really dark and beautiful. But it would just be so, oh my God, this photo, dude, it would just be so, I'm a stuntman. I was never a snowboarder. I was always a stuntman. So that's what I'm trying to get at. It wasn't the high talent. It was just I could see something, and 50% of the time I could tell that it was going to work.
So there wasn't a lot of fear when you were about, like, let's say I'm imagining being another rider and being partnered with you, or a filmer or photographer, someone like Clay Larson, who was filming the Sandbox movies, or Mike Fikowski. Yeah. And I mean, they don't have this plasm thing inside them. So they have fear.
They got the tickles.
They got the tickles.
And they're factor of 5. This New Yorker in St. Anton once was like, "Ah, man, you go heliboarding? You ever gone heliboarding? Pucker factor of 5. Scares the shit out of you. Asshole's so tight. It's a pucker factor of 5. That means it's really scary." So yeah, we did a lot of pucker factor of 5 lines, and you could tell Mike was uncomfortable.
Do you think, okay, so do you think there's something in the water? Because I feel like there's lots of riders that are from Alberta that are like well-known, gnarly, fearless. It seems to be uncalculated, but it isn't. It's like genius calculated.
Very calculated.
Like
very calculated.
Riders like Jonathan Moore, who you spent time with.
Yeah,
would be like,
graduated with them, same class. You're absolutely right. I can explain it though. We don't have any snow here. So, and by saying that, I don't mean don't come here, there's no snow. It's not Calgary. It's Banff, and there's snow, but there's rocks right under the surface. So you always have to, you just get so damn used to clicking rocks. And thank God I rode for Option in the beginning, because no other board could handle this place. I've never broke a single Option board my entire life. And I rode for them for like 10 years. And Jones is held out too, surprisingly. A few rides, I blew a few rides out, but they were capped. But anyway, there's so many rocks that you just get used to, and it's just like, oh, I'm gonna have to hit that rock halfway down. But here's the psychology of it, and no joke, this is honestly why I found it so different than other people. And I felt bad a lot of times, because when a lot of the Whistler riders would come out for Sandbox and we'd all ride together, they had a different psychological kind of way of dealing with their own stuff. And sometimes I would weigh in a little bit too heavy, and I always felt bad about that later. And I'd say, watch out for rocks. It could click. Don't try your tricks off that thing right away until you're comfortable with it. There's a lot of rocks. I'd always say rocks, 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 rocks. And then they'd be like, I'm not fucking doing that. That's stupid. And then I realized they have to get there on their own, or they have to figure it out on their own. The last thing you want is a brain falling in the snow. So I'd always just tell them, and thinking that they would deal with it like I would, but they didn't. But anyway, so when we're on top of lines, and I noticed this, and I actually used it to my advantage later on, we would talk about the line, and I would talk about everything bad that was going to happen. If you bounce off there, if you get spit upside down, you're going to have to not put your arm out, or you'll dislocate your shoulder. You're going to have to put your elbow down, because there's going to be rocks under that landing. So you want to take it on your arm, not your rib cage. And so you'd always talk about that, like the 18 bad outcomes from that line. Then what happens psychologically is, as you drop the line, as soon as something goes wrong, your mind is already prepared, and those instant split-second safety decisions already are in your mind, and they're already taking place with your body, and you're already protecting yourself so that there's no catastrophic injury. And in the backcountry, you just can't handle that. So you have to go worst case scenario, whereas everyone would always be at the top, and new riders especially would always go, no, man, don't talk about anything bad that's gonna happen, man. Just good, man. It's fine. I swear. Come on, man. Don't be so negative. And I'd be like, no, talk about everything bad. So when it happens, you're just all good, man. You know. So.
I agree with that.
Do you understand what I mean, though? Yeah,
I do. Actually, now that I've spent the last while in the backcountry, I think the worst thing you can do is neglect and not talk about the consequences, because you're out in winter settings with minimal sunlight, because you're shooting during the winter, and you need to go like, okay, if homie messes up on this line, if he overshoots this jump, there's a tree, there's a rock,
there's a creek at first in the creeks, worst case scenario, hold your breath.
Totally. It's like, it's nice to like at least bring those things up, and then when you're going to actually do the stunt riding, I like that you articulated a stunt riding too, because when people ask me what I do, I tell people I'm a stunt boarder.
You are. I bet you got.
And then they're like, stunt man or stunt boarder? I'm like, somewhere in the middle. But yes, I agree with what you're saying. I think that it's really good to like bring out the obvious, or maybe not so obvious, injuries that could occur out there, because then when they do happen and you haven't thought about them at all, and then your team's not prepped at all, it's like shit can go haywire. And we've had some pretty wild injuries over the last 4 or 5 years, compound fractures and shattered cheekbones and what you can think of. It happens.
And that's just it. Like you're standing on top of a line wherever you may be. And I did a lot of riding with, so I know I'm like putting myself in your shoes right now, what you were just talking about. Yes, you can see, and you can even see the next pillow line, or the next, like if you're doing a double cliff or something, you can see the next, but you don't know that's not going to be hard as a freaking rock. I mean, yes, you can normally see when it's boilerplate and you avoid it, but if there's only 2 inches of snow and that's the only bit that's sloughed, that's going to spit you instantly. So talk about it. Talk about the danger of that and exactly what's going to happen. And then when it spits you, at least you're already like squirreling out, getting ready, and you can pull it off and at least get your board under you. And also the takeoff. I've had so many takeoffs. So you can't stand on the inch of takeoff. You have to stand like two meters back, because if you stood on the edge, you'd slip off and die. So the second you hit that takeoff, I've had sharp little shark teeth right on the takeoff, and basically right under my back foot, it just stopped my board. And I had to ollie off like a 60-foot drop in Argentina before, because I got hung up on like a full base wound. And I was like, but I was ready for it and stomped it. I can say that. I can tell you guys anything. I probably didn't. And boom, it's like you can look in all those photos and you see rocks on every single one of those takeoffs. And I was ready for it because I talked about like the worst case scenario. And what I was saying was I used it to my advantage is I'd go to contests and I'd fuck with people all the time. I'd be like at the top, I'd be like, there's no way I'm going to break my femur this run. And you'd see all the superstitious kids be like, no, man, don't say that. That's crazy, man. Oh, man, why'd you say that, man? Knock on wood. And they'd be tapping on their plastic helmet. And you'd be like, well, that's fucking weird. But you could mess with people, get in their heads. And I was invincible too. I never got hurt, ever, until one catastrophic accident. But other than that, it was like a 20-year career with like a separated shoulder here or there, nothing that would keep me off a board for more than a week.
Okay,
So
there's
I was on to something.
Two things that you said there: catastrophic injury that we need to touch base on, and then contests, because I know that you did a lot of contests. So maybe touch base on the catastrophic injury quickly, and then let's take this over to the contest, because that was a big factor and a player, I think, in your career.
My injury
on. Maybe injury and then contests.
Well, injury in a nutshell, we built Red Bull and Snowboarder Magazine built this incredible jump on a 60-meter ski jump at Norquay in Banff. And it was awesome because, but what not a lot of people know is ski jumpers take off at -11 degrees. It's not a jump. It's a negative angle because it's all about staying like 10 feet above the snow the whole time. So what happens when you put a kicker that's 22 or 28 degrees on top of something where you don't have enough snow to properly build up a landing? It's going to be a heavy duty jump, right? And you know, for anyone who knows me knows I've talked about this injury before because it's all I got. It's not like, oh man, my knee blew out. Shut up. Everyone loses a knee. I don't even want to hear about your knee. But this was great because I knew right away that this thing, like me and Dustin guinea pigged it the day before. He beat me to it. No one beats me to a guinea pig. I was so pissed off at him. But he beat me to it. He did like a backside 3 or something. It was like 120 foot to where we'd land. And you had to gap a cat track just to, and as you were getting your head up, you were taking off the jump. It was so wicked. I love sketchy shit like that. And then I think I did backside 7 on the guinea pig day, and I came around and I landed and I could feel the impact, which, you know, these days jumps are so well built, you don't feel that. And I was like, okay, we're going to have maybe 5 to 10 hits tomorrow before our bodies are just going to just rebel. And so the first hit I do a backside 5 land, awesome. Felt so good. I was on cloud 9. I was like, just nailed that, going so fast. And then I was like, okay, I better do this trick I just learned last week that I don't even know what it's called or what it looks like. So I cabbed the big 20-foot cat track gap, landed switch, and I was going to go off this thing. And kids today could probably tell me what this is called, but you do like a cab 180 and then you dive into a front flip. Is it an under flip?
Cab 5 roll? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. And it's just cool as shit. And it was working on the little 30-foot table the week before, once in a while. So of course, why wouldn't you just apply it? And I go off this thing, switch, and instantly I'm doomed. Like right away. And in the air, the whole time I was like, oh, I'm done. I'm going to wind myself. I'm going to have to quickly get up, go into the trees, have a cry, catch my breath back. This could be a full minute out. I might pass out. I might not have any breath left in my, like I know exactly that I'm toast, but it's so minor. It's just, oh, this is going to hurt. Whammy, shattered my pelvis, 9 breaks. Femur came right through it. And apparently I dislocated a bone in my wrist too. And then you got to bounce down a 60-meter ski jump, like with a shattered pelvis. So I'm just like, oh, fucking please end soon. Oh, fucking please end soon. And I get to the bottom and yeah, you know, obviously I'm toast, but once upon a time I was dirt biking with a friend and he dislocated his hip. So I assumed my hip hurt had to be dislocated as well because it happened to a friend of mine once, right? And it was painful for him. So why wouldn't this be the exact same injury? So the ski patrollers pull up and I'm like so stubborn. No, Dustin's going to drive me to the hospital. We're all good. And they're like, dude, you need to get in the boat. I'm like, no, Dustin. So Dustin comes down and he's like, hey man, are you dead? And I'm like, in so much pain. And I'm like, you pull the station wagon around. The time I drove a beautiful little Ford Focus. And he's like, I don't know, man. These guys seem to think it's pretty bad. And I'm like, what do they know? So after a while, I'm like, okay, this is really starting to hurt. I need some drugs. So I'll just take the ambulance. I felt like such a little bitch. So they bring me to the Banff hospital and they x-ray it and they're like, it looks like someone dropped a bottle on a sidewalk. We can't even touch you here. We have to send you to Calgary. So off I went. Anyway, long time, hospital for a month. Long story short, got to watch all the Sopranos episodes, all the South Park seasons, all the Family Guy seasons. It was basically the best 3 months of my life.
What's your favorite TV show after you left?
Well, Sopranos, what character building? And then the other two, obviously cartoons, because you can get away with more.
I love that you say, no, I'm good. Dustin,
I'm good.
I
would rather crawl off a mountain with 2 broken legs than get in a helicopter. If you do it to yourself, you got a responsibility.
We need to talk about that parasite again. What's the name of the parasite that you have?
I think it's toxoplasmy.
Okay, yeah,
right.
That definitely is playing a factor.
And it doesn't necessarily affect everybody, but anyway, you gotta check it out. It's cool.
Yeah,
I went to the Parasite Museum in Tokyo. If you ever go to Tokyo, go to the Parasite Museum. It is sensational. It is so fascinating. They have the world's biggest tapeworm that got pulled out of a human. It is so, it's creepy. Like you itch for days after this place. But go there. It's really cool. By donation only.
You touch on guineaing there, which I mean,
no one can ever get that
insane.
Again. No one can ever hit a jump again. And so guinea pigging is so important, was so important to me. And at all the super parks, I had to hit everything first if I could. And then that damn Travis Rice came along and started like beating me to stuff. And it was great because, and also like Jonas would always try to beat me too. We were really competitive, Jonas Gwynn. He would beat me on a few. He got that half pipe gap at Lake Louise, that massive half pipe gap first. Him and Kelly Skovanek hit it first. Fuckers. They wore a nice suit that day and everything.
Who's the original guinea pigger? Like, who's the guy that you looked up to? You're like, damn, this guy keeps guineaing everything. I want to be like him.
I don't
like know, Kurt Westell.
Kurt Westell was awesome. Yeah, he was badass. He had a big jaw. You could tell he was a trooper. The people at the top, you had to start competing to understand that who that gang was, because then you would see them. Like Marc-Andre Tart was always very active in the big air circuit when it was just, they were called big airs. Kevin Jones was always like, you didn't talk. Kevin Jones was really funny because the first time I didn't meet him yet, I knew who he was. I admired him. And then I went to the West Beach Classic in '98. I got an invite to that. I was only 18 and he was at the top. And I was like, fuck, this is my first time seeing like a mega pro. And I just wanted to listen to him because I really admired his personality. And he was you did not show weakness around this guy. He would just tear you to pieces. And maybe that was part of my inspiration of like, how do I fuck with these little pussy wussies up here? And the truth of the matter is all pro sports, what I'm learning now, and I'm watching like the hockey finals and everything, is it's all pro sports. Like, it's just like snowboarding. There's only 5% of professional snowboarders that are amazing. The Sidney Crosbys, the McDavids. There's only 5%. And then there's like 10 more percent that have a chance to get there but they're going to have to try even harder. That 5% is so naturally talented and has the right psychology. And then there's 85% that are just fucking replaceable. And there's million people waiting to replace them and can replace them perfectly. And it would be like they never even existed. And I don't mean to sound like an a-hole I'm sorry, but they're replaceable, and they don't have that little something that it takes. Yes, they're stylish. Yes, they talk like they care about everything and they know everything about it, but they're just replaceable. And you see it in hockey too. It's like that guy's replaceable, and the next guy would be just as good or better. And so
Who was growing up? Who was well? Is there anybody that comes to mind that was replaceable? And is there somebody that
fuck, the list is so long. Like I would have been a terrible team manager. I would have just been such an asshole. You're replaced. The standouts though, they're probably, we don't have enough time to talk about the replaceables.
Yeah,
the standouts were like, I was even replaceable. I tried, like I was so close to getting podiums so often. I was always in like 5th in the half pipes. And my whole thing was amplitude. I wanted to go higher than everybody else. And Michael Chuck was going really high, and Abe Teeter was going really high. And then there were the really technical riders. Like I was doing, Crippler 7s. That was like my trick, my big trick. And this is, keep in mind, I shouldn't say before doubles, because Michael Chuck was there and he was doing doubles. I was at that US Open where he did the first one. Terrier got on the podium and said, today's day is Michael Chuck's, even though he wasn't on the podium, because that was in Vermont and it was sensational.
That's cool that Terrier did that.
Yeah, and he did a double wet cat and he landed it. And of course, he washed out on something else. He didn't deserve to be on the podium, Michael Chuck, but he just did the first competition, massive competition double. And it wasn't just a double backy or a double fucking Fulton flip. It was like a fucking wet cat. That he was like one of the only people even doing singles. So pretty cool to see. And then to have Terrier give him the props, because at the time Terrier was the leading voice of technical freestyle.
Here, let me jump in here for 1 second, because I was talking to you earlier about how I watched a podcast that you did with Willie and Kevin Jones, and in that podcast, you guys mentioned how the term legend is kind of overused. Who, when you were coming up in the contest scene, were like the legends? I know that term is used really loosely.
Back then now. It was legendary, I guess, but not because of their skill, but more because they were like, I don't want to call them goats because they weren't the greatest of all time, but they were just staying power. They had staying power and consistency. They weren't like crying when they blew their knee out because, oh, I lose my sponsor. Shut the fuck up. That's not what you're supposed to be thinking about. You're supposed to be thinking like, the doctor said I won't ride for 6 months. Prove him wrong. That's a legend. Ride in 2 months. I was on my board, and I'm not calling myself a legend here, but I was on my board 9 months after I shattered my pelvis. Yes, my back leg didn't work. Yes, I had to mount my snowboard switch. Yes, I had no business doing that. But it's the psychology of it that makes a legend, not the fucking talent, and not like crying. The little bitches, the replaceable bitches was what I hated. And I sound bitter right now. And I had a few bad years where I was kind of bitter because it was such a hustle and it was so hard to get enough money just to go somewhere and do everything and work so fucking hard. Well, you had like these little bitches getting sent around the world while they're team managers. Like that made me bitter for a little while. And I've gotten over that since then. But the truth of the matter is, it's the staying power that makes the legend. And I hate to say it because Terry is kind of an a-hole, but he's a legend because he has staying power. Look at the guy. He's still like shredding hard. And
I think Gigi's probably
Gigi's a legend.
Is like the ultimate legend. His part that he just filmed with Pirates alongside John Jay, like those two have been filming incredible backcountry, and they still have like the style and finesse, and they also have all of the big tricks. Like Gigi does a front 10 double in his last part that's as good as if Mick Morris filmed it. Like it is like,
he's so good, and he smiles, and he dictated his whole career. Like he just does whatever he wants. Pirates, I'm going to go film Pirates now and make this thing amazing, and now it's the most amazing thing. He didn't have to go. Pirates wasn't that big production house.
Yeah,
like I just love it. And then do your own thing on your boards, do your own thing. Like snowboarders have this rare opportunity unlike any other sport in the world. Yes, it's an Olympic sport now, but can speed skaters have a career without the Olympics? 90% of sports don't exist. Snowboarding would completely exist and thrive without the Olympics. And we have an opportunity to be able to go in the backcountry, and that's a sport. Be a half pipe rider and not even go in the Olympics, and you can still have a career. Be a slopestyle rider and you can still have a career. Be a rail guy. Look at these amazing rail contests, like the filming contest where you have like 48 hours or a week. You know more about it than me, but that is awesome. I'm not even a rail guy. I don't care about rails, but that's so cool that rail riders can just have a career. You could never leave Salt Lake City, never leave the city limits, and you could be the biggest shit in the world in snowboarding. Look at Dan Breezy. That guy he's a legend. Staying power. He does the most death-defying urban stunts. And, you know, people get all, oh, Dan Breezy, that guy rules everybody. He has like the staying power of like 100 Salt Lake City-odians. Anyway, hats off, Dan.
Yes, that was
I'm glad
amazing.
Dan came up. What a legend.
Now what was the first big jump at Super Park that you guineaed?
Oh, well, it would have been my first Super Park was Lake Louise, because I was always, that was the time of year I was already like good friends with Pat, and he invited me to a couple before that, but that was always like sandbox film time. That was like when we'd all get together. Normally they'd come out to Banff, and it was just so cool. And so we just didn't travel for Super Parks. And then they brought Super Park to Banff. I can't remember what year. 3 different park builders built it, and they only built one feature. And then Jonas beat me to the guinea pig on the big gap, that fucker.
That event was huge for Canadian snowboarding. I feel like
very important.
The Lake Louise snowboarder super park was, I was in Winnipeg at the time, and my childhood hero / the guy I looked up to, Kevin Griffin was there, Dustin's career, Charles, so many. I mean, Luke Suderman was riding really
Dustin,
well.
That was his first. Dustin. That was like his first shine. Like he was nothing, and he came there and he was doing that big teepee kind of plywood rail that dropped you off like 20 feet off the backside. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And then we were just starting to hang out with Dustin, and he was like super fun and had like a good personality, but he's shy. Isn't that weird?
He was shy?
He was shy. What a loser. And so, but we started hanging out with him because we were like, it was just we were so shocked that there was someone else from Banff, Calgary that wanted to ride things. Because most of the people were like either urban, so we didn't get to ride with them a lot, or they went to Whistler. So we were just so happy to have Dustin, who was like keen and wanted to like do all the stuff with Jonas and I, even though I don't think he really wanted to.
Alberta riders were always really well-rounded at that time. I feel like when I look at like Dustin and Charles and Kevin Griffin, they used to ride everything.
TJ Schneider too.
TJ, Jed.
Yeah. He was a Jed.
Jed rode everything.
Jed found his way later, but he could do a lot of different stuff.
Oh, he was sick at the half pipe when he was a kid, like COP.
Yeah. Before he even had muscles, he was good. When he was just a bowling ball rolling down the half pipe. But there was a really good scene in Alberta, and I won't get too into it, but it was very positive, and because it was smaller, it was very supportive as well. And there wasn't a lot of rivalry here. If anything, there was like, I remember getting a call from TJ once, and we had always competed together like in the 90s and stuff. And we both had this massive issue where we can't get the exposure we need. We can't ever get to the level we want to get to without exposing ourselves, and nobody will give us that. Like every time someone got really good at taking photos or filming, off they went to one of the Hollywood locations, and I don't blame them for that. That's where you go to like make a go of it, Whistler or Mammoth or Salt Lake. And then so me and TJ, he called me and he goes, okay, we got to help each other here. We got to do this together. Like, how do we support each other. And so we just had to talk. We just found ways to market each other. And we, you know, that was when the very first like Canadian club, snowboard club, was like the Wildcats, you know? So we were the Banff Boys. Sounds like the Proud Boys now. I hate even hearing it out loud. But we had to, it was like the group of 7 artists. I don't know why I'm diving into artists, but they were all Canadian artists, and kind of led by Tom Thompson, who was the most famous, and they all had to work together to promote themselves worldwide, and they all got on a global stage because of it. And that was what we did, and it worked a little bit. TJ, one Whistler summer, he was being filmed doing like, you're gonna correct me, doing like 450s onto rails and then 450s off, like shit like that. You know, I obviously didn't say that right, but it was the first time that had really been done. And
they were in Afterbang.
He blew up.
Yeah, because he had shit in Afterbang, I'm pretty sure. Like the first robot food movie doing the 450s on and stuff. It's like his staple. Kevin Jones is really good at those 450s too at that time. Like TJ's 450s onto rails were impeccable at the time.
And he was even going more than that. I remember seeing it and going, oh my goodness, this is exactly what the industry is looking for right now. Good for him.
And you're sitting there like, damn it, I don't want to spin off the toes.
I'm not going to do that. Now what do? I have to go frickin' jump onto a fucking cliff rock and bounce off of it. Okay, I'll do it.
Because we had Dustin in the conversation there.
Yeah.
I texted Dustin a couple days ago that I was going to do this podcast.
Free spirit. Yep.
And he said he sent me a pretty dope text, and I thought I would read it out. He said, Andrew showed me that snowboarding doesn't have to be so serious, and that people that run the contest are always taking it too serious, and the competitors are mainly just dorks. Which is funny because Dustin came up as like, the way Dustin came up was a contest kid. I mean, he went to the Arctic Challenge and he was doing all of the US Opens.
Most Alberta kids do come up out
first.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, very strong contest rider. And then he meets you, and you guys kind of start hanging out together, and you could see that Dustin's started messing around with like, well, what kind of personality do I want to have in snowboarding? And that's the reason why I think Dustin really made it, is when he developed his personality.
I would agree with you. I tried to ruin him. And whereas Derek Height, at the time the team manager of Oakley, was trying to clean him up and make him disappear, make him be a robot. And I was like the devil on his shoulder, and Derek Height was probably like the angel on his shoulder, and Blue as well was probably like, clean it up, but don't clean it up too much. He was like the middleman. And we all were trying to tug him in different ways because we liked the little bastard. But luckily I had more time with him. and honestly, that was all him. Like everything he did was him. I just was there to go, yeah, I think it's great. I think you're doing perfect. I think, as a matter of fact, I'll point a camera at you. You're so fucking hilarious right now. And that you're going to live that one for the rest of your life, aren't you? So yeah, it was great to see that there was still people who wanted to be themselves and not fall into that boring gray square that so many robot riders thought was the only way. And those guys, you never heard from them. They just, if you saw, you just didn't get anything. And you mentioned the robot food videos. Those were the best because they like dove into everybody's personality, and it like took the guys that you could see who they were through the riding and made a movie out of it, and made it beautiful. Rather than,
I think that's what separates good videos from great videos. The good ones just showcase good riding, a little bit of personality. Yeah. The great videos that are the best, I feel like, showcase the best riding and the personality of the riders. And you can like feel who these riders are. And when you watch those old robot food movies, like you're like, oh, this is what Scotty Arnold's like. This is what Travis Parker's like. This is what David Benedict's kind of the chill guy. And or you got to feel for everybody.
You could be a stalker.
And they
You
wouldn't
could
show
start
that.
going, I think he'd really like me. We have to meet. I'm going to send him a letter. I put my girlfriend in the boot of the car. I'm going to kill her if you don't write back to me, Travis.
Eminem Stan.
Thank you for getting that. I butchered it. You got it though.
No, not at all. And maybe because you brought up Super Park, another question I had, and I was texting with Pat Bridges, who was
Love him.
Yeah, I think a lot of Canadians do. I think Pat really helped a lot of Canadians through his well, not his event, but Snowboarder Mag Super Park, like really helped
not
bring
even
a lot of
just Super
spotlight.
Parks. Snowboarder Mag was the only big magazine, global magazine, that showcased Canadian snowboarding. Transworld didn't. I can completely comfortably say they didn't know anything about Canada. They had a few people who wanted to get there, but it just never did. Whereas Snowboarder Magazine was amazing. They were so important.
And was that because of Pat Bridges or because of everyone?
Yeah. No, and there's also because of a few other people on the staff in the early days as well. Jeff Baker was one of them. They traveled to Canada. They would put trips together to Canada, to unknown places. They would go visit Justin Bond in Golden. Nobody knew anything about Golden. Nobody knew anything about Justin Bond, and they would go and visit him and showcase, because they knew he was talented. Like, they wanted to show talent, and they also wanted to show geography, which another thing I loved about the Robot Food movies was I wanted to go to locations after I saw them there because they highlighted them. I think it always could get better because I was more of like, how can I experience what these people are experiencing in these countries? But Snowboarder Magazine did a really good job of it. Yeah, and Bridges even he would come up all the time. He did that half beard article in Banff, and he shaved his face in my sink and clogged my sink for like 3 years. No amount of sulfuric acid could eat through that disgusting creature's beard hair. But Bridges cared. He cared about, and there's no one in the industry that knows more about snowboarders and who they are and what they do than him too. I mean, he's not just a super nerd. He is like he's the eye. They call him the eye. I didn't even think of that, but he is that eye in Lord of the Rings, except probably not evil. Maybe he's evil. I don't know.
I always liked Pat because I went to Super Park and I rode this jump with Dustin and Travis Rice and with Nash and Kale, two other Calgary boarders.
Yeah.
And you were there. It was the year that Travis was filming for The Art of Flight, the first first movie.
Yeah.
And you switched back 7 that jump, like I forget what it was called.
The first or the second?
Berserker or something.
First or the second Super Park at Lake Louise?
Oh, this one I'm talking about was in Mammoth.
Oh, that was Mammoth. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those were good Super Parks out way over on the back.
Yeah, totally. That was my first one. And Pat was at the end, he came up to me and he said something like, good riding. And I was like, I was so nervous to go to Super Park because my good friend Kevin was like, if you go, you can't suck and you can't be a sketch or you'll get tapped out. Like, you have to ride good. If you think you're going to drift,
the 5%.
And he was telling me about this whole drift thing when you're riding 30, 40 foot jumps in Winnipeg and in the small parks of Whistler Blackcomb, you just don't understand if you drift on a certain rotation. Once you get up to like an 80 foot jump, that drift gets compounded a lot and you end up flying off the side of the jump and dying. So Kevin's like, you suck at spinning cab and backside, Jody. Do not spin those ways or you're gonna
showcase your highlights. Showcase your highlights. And you know what Bridges knows? He only lets people ride that he knows are good. He doesn't let those little attitudes like, fuck that, fucking rule, Bridges won't let me ride. Well, it's because you suck. I'll be the voice of reason. You suck. Go away. But you know, he rewards real riders, and he did at Super Park. Super Park was amazing for that, and that's why riders like Lonnie would shine nobody else would put Lonnie in anything. He turns out to be like the Super Park highlight. Travis Rice got his come-ups at Super Park. It's cool because he had a really strict, like, it made me nervous sometimes the way he was yelling at kids.
I saw him make somebody cry.
Oh, I'm surprised. I think more people cried. They just hit it.
No, he yelled at him.
Huh?
Pat yelled at him, and then I saw that person in the lift line by themselves. Like, I was like, "Whoa,
good. He
fuck, that
disappeared.
guy's."
So glad you followed him and uncovered his weakness to the world. It's just really dusty. Shut up, Jody. Someone's chopping onions. We're right near the cafeteria.
Maybe you could give us a play-by-play by this particular day at Super Park at Lake Louise, where you got taken in and out of the drunk tank. You showed up with a Caesar beverage, an array of the toppings like pickled asparagus, and then you proceeded to jump from the big jump into the middle of the woods. So not going towards the landing, but going completely on a 45-degree angle and ollieing into the forest.
Like some riders got like super mad at me for that. They were like so pissed off. That was at Keystone in Colorado. I got arrested and taken to Breckenridge, which was 45 minutes away. And it was because I ran. We the parties at Super Park are 3/4 of the reason I go. And of course I got just turboed because one of my favorite team managers of all time, Mervan Roost, came out from Montreal. Just hang out, man. He's like French and cool. And he dropping Brooks bags was what he sponsored me for. But he came out and he showed up at the bar and I'm like, oh, well, we're getting fucked up. Let's do this. Don't you have to ride tomorrow, man? Nah, fuck. What are you talking about? Oh yeah, fuck Super Park. So we got turboed, and then I saw the cops pull up. I go, quick, everybody run, it's the cops. And I was the only one who ran because, obviously people are smart. And the cops followed me, and I was just running for no reason. And they caught me in a waist-deep post-hole snowbank and tackled me, and I was screaming. And they're like, why are you screaming? I'm like, because you're going to taser me. I seen the films, man. I seen the films. You American cops taser everybody. And they're like, we're not going to taser you. Where are you? We'll take you home right now. They were like really nice. So because everything looks the same in Interwest villages, I could not find my condo for the life of me. They're just driving me around like mom and dad. And so they're like, sorry, man, if we can't find your place, we got to take you to jail, to the drunk tank. So off we go. And they got me in the handcuffs in the back. And I thought I was just telling stories the whole way there. And they were laughing. I had them cracking up. And I thought it would be so impressive. We all do this. If you could get the handcuffs from behind your back, and when they open the door, they're in front of you. So I got jammed up on my feet. So for 20 minutes, I sat there telling stories so they wouldn't look back, because this was going to be my big Houdini moment. And I get there and they open the door, and I even heard one of them go, this guy, he's pretty funny. And they open the door and I roll out stuck on my feet. So they're like, you know what? We're not going to put him in the drunk tank. We're going to put him in detox, which means anyone can come and get him at any time. And they have to call this girl in, and she has to sleep. She has to make sure I don't, puke and choke on it. And they gave me crayons to color with. And I used their phone to call all of my friends I called Jeff Keenan in Vancouver. I called a bunch of friends in Montreal. Like, it was supposed to be to get a ride, but I just took advantage. Anyway, so Mike came in the morning and he picked me up. How nice. And we went there. I was still hammered, and I took a quick cat nap at the top. And about an hour later, Pat Bridges assaulted me. Hardingham, you got to get up. You've been sleeping all day. And I popped up, just still shit-faced. And the reason they let me out of jail is because I kept telling them, I got this tree jump that I eyeballed yesterday, and I really want to do it. You got to let me out. And they were like, okay, fine. We'll let you out if you can find someone to pick you up this morning, because you're supposed to blow before they can let you go. So I blew, and I was way over, and they can't let me leave. So anyway, they let me leave because they're cool. Thank you. Boys in Blue of Breckenridge. And so off we went, and I woke up to being salted, and then I was like, hey, let's fucking do this. Fakowsk, let's film. And he's like, all right. you're still hammered. This should be hilarious. And off the jump, I went straight into these old growth pine trees, and they were about, you could barely hug them. They were so big. And first couple times I couldn't land it because you had to land, and then it was like Star Wars. They were about a meter apart, some of them, and then there was one right at the bottom, right in the middle, and you had to curve around it. So I kept like jamming on the brakes and hitting it with my board, and then by like the fourth time I got one, and I like bounced off the tree with my hip and smashed into another tree, and that kept me up. It was like a pinball, but without those trees, I wouldn't have landed it anyway. And then Pepper just shut me down. He said, "You can't do it anymore." I was like, "Gladly." So I would have just kept going. It was so fun. Like, it was
so you got tapped
so
at Super Park.
Well, no, he tried to tap me after I broke my pelvis. I went up the year after, and I was riding the quarter pipe, and he just thought it was so sketchy. And he's like, Pat Moore tapped me. He gave Pat Moore a tap. And Pat Moore's like, "Andrew, you tapped." I'm like, "Pat, there's one fucking guy at Super Park who can't get tapped. It's me. Fuck you." And I just kept riding it. So good one, Pat Moore. You wasted your fucking tap, idiot. Pat Moore was a standout at Super Park too. He was amazing.
Pat Moore?
Pat Moore, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like just a turbo good snowboarder. He's like strong, redhead. Tall.
Yeah.
That's all
totally.
you need. That's all you need. Good Scottish blood. Good Scottish blood hitting jumps.
How important do you think events like Super Park are to the culture of snowboarding?
That was there's 3 events that stand out in my mind in North America, and that is one of them. And that one was the best because it included the most people and also gave the most people the chance to shine, which meant they could actually move up to where they were supposed to be in their companies. Whereas, every team manager was there watching and listening, and half the team managers out there don't know shit. So they have to listen to people who do know shit. And
I would say more than half of team managers know nothing.
Oh, nothing. They're just grumpy old.
They have no idea what it's like to be on a rail trip.
Snowboarders that sucked half the time, and sometimes they're ex-snowboarders that were good, but they didn't want to do it anymore. But so Super Park was the most important. The other ones were West Beach Classic, and the other one's Canadian as well. It was the Showcase Showdown. Showcase? No, it was the what's that shop called in Quebec?
Yeah.
Cigar? Was it the Showcase Showdown?
No, it was the Empire
Shakedown.
Yeah. Those ones were big.
Shakedown.
The thing about Super Park, though, is Super Park was, like you were saying, if you were the best from Canada, from Japan, from New Zealand, from Australia, you would go to Super Park to showcase that you can hang with the likes of all the Americans that get all the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like, that was the recipe for Canadians the only reason why I made it in snowboarding is because of the 3 years I rode at Super Park. And then the footage that came out from Super Park, it was still at the time that not every talented snowboarder jumped on trampolines and could everyone who was able to hit the 100-foot jump and spin a 720 that looked really well was like, okay, this rider is deserving of something, clearly, because there's not a lot of people who can front 7 or back 9 over this jump. So he's part of the club. And
he learned it the hard way on ice, not into a foam pit.
Anyways, that launched my career. And it's I don't want to say it's sad to see that it dissipated over the years, but for some reason, when you kind of transitioned out of being a professional snowboarder, I think around the 2015, 2017, 18 mark, it really started not being the same, and it kind of lost its like spark. And I don't really know why that is. I feel like Super Park was always like, okay, the best riders will come to this thing. And then eventually there was a lot of riders who at the end of the year filming wanted to go to Super Park, but they didn't want to hit the 100-foot jumps, and they just kind of wanted to hang out. So then they kind of started making some more fun things. I don't know if that was like the demise of it, or like, I couldn't really put my finger on why
Mm.
it didn't keep being the best thing ever. And I think that there's room for it to restart itself now that COVID is dissipated and stuff like that. And it feels to me like that event, not under Snowboarder Mag, but under Slush. So it's still Pat Bridges. I think he should do something that's very similar and reboot that thing, because I feel like it's really important for snowboarders like people in Alberta that don't want to move to Whistler, but who still deserve the opportunity to showcase their ability to be able to hang alongside the best.
Yeah, you know, I think you just nailed it there when you said there's room for an event like it. And I don't know if Super Park will ever go again, because I think Pat already did that really well, and he ended on a really high note, and he did so much for the sport with that event. But the other thing was, yeah, the riders, the 85%, always ganged up and wanted to pretend like it was too big and it was dangerous, and they would all get together and chirp that until someone finally started listening. But Bridges knew that that was bullshit, and he kept making the big stuff. And yeah, of course, have fun stuff all over. But there are other events like Holy Bowly that are just incredible for low impact riders, even though this year's was like not a low impact event at all. It was like pretty crazy. But it still had options for everybody who was really technical on the ground. Yeah, I think what this leaves is a massive opening for someone to be successful who's organized and good at events to create something new. And as long as they can make enough money to make their life of hard work worth it, it'll happen. Trust me. But you're right. When those go away, you look for it. You go, where did that go? Where was that feeling? Where was that energy? And also, you know what disappeared at the same time was videos, right? They kind of went all online, and people in their contracts now have X amount of, they need to be on social media, and that became a priority. And so obviously when all that stuff dilutes the big shit, the big show, what do you do next? You need another Travis to just pop out of nowhere and have the kind of Red Bull dollars or whatever dollars to make another Art of Flight, because Travis has already done it and he can keep doing it, but you need a totally obscure, like a Candide thing. The Man of Few Words. Do you see that one? It's a ski movie, but it was so cool. Because it was another Art of Flight, but done by a totally different kind of personality. It would be nice if someone totally different could do that. Is Sean Pettit, has he had his movie yet?
Sean did a bunch, and now he's like fully moved on from professional skiing in the last like 5 years. Well, he's still professional skiing, but he's not doing it like he used to, like Evil Knievel style. He's not trying to be like a Travis Rice. I think that he had some really close calls.
Good. He was so good. He was so good.
Yeah, he was. I watched I did a podcast with him about a year ago.
Good one. It was a really good one.
And I rewatched all of his breakout ski parts. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, like he was getting skier of the year at like 15 years old. Like skier of the year. He was like the Travis Rice of skiing, but at 15. I don't know if there's ever going to be another Sean Pettit. Like to get the best in the world at action sports at 15 is like.
And you know what was cool about him too is like, maybe it was because skiing had so much to overcome. And I know we're not speaking to a skier crowd here, but skiing had all of the European shit old bags to climb over to get to where it is now. And now it's exactly what snowboarding is. If anything, pro skiers are way more badass than most pro snowboarders, but they had to climb over fucking straight skis. They were told we should do parabolics 20 years before snowboarding was even invented. And then it took snowboarding to show them that we should do parabolics. We had to get over those ski racer douches. And they finally did, thanks to Solomon's twin tip ski, and then whatever their evolution was great. But Sean was right when you could be a free skier properly and be cool and have it be celebrated. And he was really lucky. I think when he was like 16 or 17, I ran into him in Japan for like a week at the same hotel, and we partied together. And he was with the New Schoolers. I don't know if you know that website, but
No.
they were like us, man. This is the first time they were just like bitching people out and calling out the industry and being awesome. And he really got to be a part of that. So that's why that paired with his natural talent, like he, on the next, I don't know what trip, but he brought a Asmo. He went and bought an Asmo. It was either an Asmo or a Shark. And he did a whole part on a fucking no board. And he was a pro skier. Like,
He
that is
really has
a
transitioned
well-rounded
into just
career.
doing whatever he wants. Like he skateboards, he snowboards a lot, he snowboards a lot, he skis, but he no longer
He's an
um
athlete.
I think that he's transitioned away from freestyle skiing and he likes to ski not twin tips anymore. He rides the old school planks, and his whole motto with
Yeah.
skiing is he just likes to go as fast as possible and like rip
So do
and
we
like
though,
jump
right?
off of big cliffs and not do land. Like
Yeah.
to him, switch on skiing doesn't exist. He's like, use the tool as they were designed to
Yeah.
be ridden. And
Yeah.
it's
Throw a snowball down a hill. And where that line is where you almost should be riding if you're ever like gonna go resistantless. And that's why, like, look at all of us on our quiver boards. Like I ride almost a no tail. I've got like 5 inches of tail with no kick. Like I ride a hovercraft, a Jones hovercraft. And that thing is just like, it took all the work out of it. So now all I do is focus on my next turbo slash rather than like my back legs burning. Oh, I got to stick this. Oh, I got to fucking do a twirly bird. Fuck that. I'm way too mature to be doing twirly birds. I just want to like fall down the hill perfectly now. And I do. I want to go. I want there to be like a second and a half of airtime every time I leave the ground now. I want it to be so fucking big. And I don't even care what's on the landing. It ain't gonna fucking touch me. I already had my injury. Nothing can fucking kill me now. I even the doctor said I can still be invincible, Jody. Just to let you know, I just can't be indestructible anymore.
oh,
That was a big pill to
you have
swallow.
a very smart doctor. Um, maybe we could transition this to something I want to hear you touch base on because we haven't touched on it yet. But kind of your protege, Dustin
Motocross.
Craven.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Your protege, Dustin. Natural selection. He
Love
wins
Dustin.
the bald face stop.
Mhm.
But I'm curious to just know, you grew up riding Super Park with Travis Rice. Maybe just touch on that event, Travis putting it on, Dustin doing well, just a little bit of natural selection feedback. Have you watched that event at all?
I like natural selection a lot. I just think it's such a cool contest because it rewards well-versed riders, as we all know, people who can do it all. Travis Rice, let me just first give you my opinion of that guy. He is a pure rider. He could be considered jockey, but he also is like wildly doing it his way, like we just talked about. Clearly, that's my preferred riding style, personality plus riding, and don't let anyone tell you how to do it. And he will talk about whatever he wants. He'll do whatever he wants, and he's going to ace it. And those are the people you let do whatever they want with your money, and they have. And that's why Travis is so successful, and that's why he will crush most people. Dustin wasn't always like he followed his team managers around a lot and let them book his trips and do everything their way. But he has definitely succeeded as an independent rider. So yeah, the natural selection, I love seeing that. He didn't tell me, and nobody here in Banff told me. I saw that 3 days later.
Mm-hmm.
And I was traveling for work, and I just was getting hammered on a bottle of whiskey in my hotel room, just sitting naked watching natural selection like 3 days after it got released. And I was just like, yeah, this is so great. I wonder who's going to win. And I was like putting my money on Mikal and all this stuff. And none of them even led. I was so thankful. Maniki and Mark, my neighbor, they all went down to Jackson to watch the release party with Dustin. And or was it? Yeah, wherever it was. Anyway, I'm probably fucking this story up, but I don't care. This is how it exists in my head, therefore it's true. And then when I saw that Dustin won that bald face one, I was so fucking happy. Like I was so happy. It was whatever you want to think about the comp. It was like some riders just didn't ride the way they should have. And some people are like, oh, you shouldn't have scored like that. But we weren't the judges who were there with what the judges had to work with. So it was very cool. And when he won, I was like, oh my God, you're going to Alaska, you lucky son of a bitch. Because he sent me like the runs and stuff. And I was like, oh, that is going to be, what a pilgrimage that's going to be for you. So I haven't seen the last one, so don't say anything.
No, I won't.
I tend to do it like late at night, hammered, shit-faced, naked, as I told you. I like to watch them all naked. He's Blanche. He's the slutty golden girl. I mean, these are his golden years. But they didn't have to be. He made it that way. He's a doctor now. So
Blanche's or Dustin?
Dustin's a doctor.
I thought Dustin's a painter.
If you call putting water in a bucket and washing windows painting, then yes. I guess it kind of is.
maybe yeah.
He's a doctor. He's a window doctor. PhD. Just ask him.
I will. When's the last time you saw him?
I was just in North and South Carolina with him for a good buddy's wedding. Barrett and Molly. Yeah, we just over a week ago. We went down to the largest bike rally, third largest bike rally in the United States. Suck, bang, blow. That's what it's called.
What?
It's where daughters whose dads beat them go to bartend.
This is a very weird event.
Yeah.
Why did you go there?
Myrtle Beach. That's where what's that funny guy's name who does that show where he's an ex-baseball player?
Oh, Kenny Powers?
Kenny Powers, that's where he goes to boogie board. Dude, we went there. So we were just there, yeah, just hanging out and drinking a lot and just celebrating the unity of two gorgeous people.
Fuck yeah.
Molly Parker. Anyway, yeah, I mean, yeah, Dustin can kind of do whatever he wants because he always did whatever he wants. And that's why those riders kind of can disappear quickly. Like some people are like, I'm just fucking over this sport, I'm out. And some people are like, well, like me, I got taken advantage of for the first 5 years when I deserved to get paid. So now I'm just going to milk this sport for 5 additional years and make up for the losses. And then some riders are like, my knee hurts, I can't do it anymore, and don't have the mental fortitude to continue. And then other riders just die or disappear because.
Well, I think a big factor in your career, and we can't miss this chapter, is the skits and these short films that you made.
That was
Throw Your Panties, Thunder. What? Thundermouth.
Shit for Brains.
Shit for Brains. Like
I was supposed to keep going too, but I couldn't get a lick of support for it, not a dime. And I wasn't asking for much. I was asking for like $400. Isn't that weird? And I didn't really get support in that because everyone was afraid that they would support something that someone said something mean, because it was kind of in the woke generation, the dipshittery. So maybe that's why. I don't know. I'm not going to break it down. I just didn't get supported, so it didn't get gone too far. But you know, Throw Your Panties was really, really fun to make because it was just whatever we wanted to do. And actually, one day I got a call, and this is when I met Kevin Jones, is he wanted to say that's his favorite movie. He called me. We didn't even know each other. We didn't talk more than at the top of an event from time to time. So it was a huge compliment for like one of my heroes to say, hey, Throw Your Panties is my favorite movie. Thank you. And Willie McMillan gave it to him down in Jackson. He said, you got to watch this. It's funny.
Well, all of your skits and movies were extremely raw and unique and savage and comedic and genius at the same time. But where did you always make short films and little movies, or did this kind of come out of nowhere?
I always loved making those. I made, before the first Skids movie, which was called Skids 2, before it was Sandbox, I made one called Plastic. And Sansalem was like, that's sweet, I just made this one. And he made Skids 2. And then he just started riding for Option, and I was on Option. So we were like, fuck, we should make movies together. But it was Kevin's thing. it was more like, can I make movies with you? And then, yeah, we had so much fun making those. Like, I don't have to tell you. That's where the memories are all made. And then Throw Your Panties was super fun because it was like, I'm tired of this industry taking itself so seriously. Let's just make it brutal. Let's make a brutal finger point right at the industry. And so we did, and it was funny.
The
Dustin was in
industry,
it.
I'd like for you to elaborate on that. How has the snowboard industry changed over the years?
I can't speak to it now, except that what I see is it's okay to wear a Nike or a drink company shirt. And that never used to be okay. Like Nike had to buy its way in. Like if anyone was caught dead with Nikes back when I was growing up, it was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? You gotta wear skate shoes. And then what they did is they dumped a whole bunch of money into their skateboard and marketing. And most people might not have seen these, but the original Nike skateboard ads were the coolest. And they honestly bought their popularity with these ads, because it was like the tagline was, what if all professional athletes were treated like skateboarders? And it was like these people are playing tennis in a tennis court, and then the cops showed up and they smashed themselves against the fence and they have to climb away, and the cops rip them off and throw them in jail. It was like, what if all? And I, like hook, line, and sinker, we were like, yeah, what if? And even though like most of us Canadians couldn't skate, we're shit, because what do we got, 2 months to do it? We still were like part of that community. So we're like, Nike's in. And then the dominoes, the corporations came in and started just taking over. And I still call it play it poor, keep it core. And you still see like these massive snowboard companies pretending that they're broke and that they don't make any money. And we can't afford to pay the riders what they deserve. But we're going to build a $17 million factory every 3 years. So it's just funny. So, but it's way more translucent now. That's what I would say the industry is. It's easier to see, but less people are calling them out for it, because it's okay to wear a Nike shirt or a Monster shirt. And there's nothing wrong with those brands. They support riders. They give them lots and lots of money, far more money than I ever remember anyone getting. So yeah, it's like, what do you do? And I went down to the barracks in LA, the skate park, because we had a Wii photo shoot, WSC, I used to ride for. They were really supportive of all their ambassadors. And so because what's his name? Skateboarder that owns it.
Steve Barra.
Yeah, Steve Barra is a Wii activist as well. So he had one of the big photo shoots there. And I saw all these like really good LA skate kids, like the kids that were coming up, just under the Shecklers and stuff. And they were like, just like us, they all looked the same. They all were wearing the same stuff. But it was like stuff that just, I'd never thought we would ever go to. And we never thought we'd be like these corporate driven. It would never be okay to wear that kind of corporate logo branding, but it is what it is. And they're really good athletes. So why should it matter about anything else in snowboarding or in skateboarding? As long as they're being supported, and as long as there's a few dark devils on their shoulder telling them not to be a little corporate slut and to do it their way, then they are fine. Unfortunately, generally it's their moms telling them, we need a new house. You go, boy.
I mean, that's the one thing is like, snowboarding is such a short-lived career.
I went 20 years getting paid. That's pretty good.
That's really good. Yeah. But like, if you can get the Mountain Dew money and you take that money and then, you live a better life, but then you influence a generation of kids to just ride for whack brands. And then the ripple effect is profound. So it's like, I really look up to.
That's a good point.
Like,
yeah.
There's definitely like, there's people like Lewif and Jed, who I've heard through the grapevine. So maybe take this with a grain of salt, who've all been offered deals by energy drink companies, but have turned them all down.
Wow.
And I mean, yeah, you're like, you wonder like, okay, if you turn those things down, you make less money and maybe you have a family one day and then you're like, damn it, I wish I would have just taken the money.
Oh, of course.
But then I wonder, I don't know
Tell
what
the
the
fuck
answer
out.
is to these
Tell
people,
the
but at the same
fuck out.
time, I'm like, it's really like, I look at them with such admiration that they didn't take the money and run, because I know it inspires a generation of next snowboarders and skateboarders who are more about supporting the right brands. But then if those right brands don't actually ever pay their riders, it's just going to make, eventually, I feel like people just give in to the Nike and the Adidas and the Red Bull because they want a piece of the pie.
And they want to be successful too, because the true top of success is Red Bull makes a movie about you, and you can't do that with, you know, Dinosaurs Will Die is not going to fund a $5 million movie about one person, even though if they did, it would be amazing. Genevieve and Guinan. But can you imagine the meetings, the creative meetings at that movie?
So you say take the money and run, or what do you say to the young
now?
kids
I would say yes,
right
because
now?
you're not gonna beat it. There's no more Mike Rankwitz being like, fuck you, poser. There's no more old gang. There's no more old mob anymore. I mean, still, I say evaluate. And if you can turn down a drink sponsor, that's, you know, those guys are great. Everyone who works for those companies are great. They have lots of money. They're corporate. I don't want to put them down. Like, don't get me wrong. Red Bull is not a bad company. They support riding. They've taken riding to a whole nother level and exposed it to the whole world so everyone can see how incredible and like daring it is. But if you can like find another form of revenue, then isn't that cool? Right? But if you can't, take the fucking money, man. Why not? It's like all these NFLers, man, they got like a 6-year career. Take the money and go. Take it from someone who has 2 kids now. It's like, I don't question whether I did it right or wrong, because I had so much fun and I know I did it perfectly. But I don't know that I had the skill to ever get Red Bull money. I could have faked it. I'm really good at that. I'm really good at faking it. I mean, like on the phone, I'll be like, oh yeah, everything you want to hear. Oh really? Yeah, everything you want to hear. Everything you want to hear. But yeah, crazy.
What advice would you give to the next generation of boarders then that are on the come up right now? Do you
I'm so glad you asked that, because here's my take home advice. Produce everything yourself if you can. Be a businessman, and not like a douchebag in a suit, but as in the business of you. You are your own commodity. If you want to be a trader and deal in all those corporations, which you are trading yourself. You have to create your own world, which means, and what I did, and again, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying I did everything right, because I didn't. I didn't have any photographers to work with, Jody. So I went and got a camera, and I researched and I asked, and I had some really big guys from Snowboard Magazine tell me how I can fire my own slaves off. And I got in touch with Bassich, because he was the only guy taking photos of himself. And I was like, tell me how to do this. I need this. You're always riding by yourself. I ride by myself. I don't want to work harder on finding someone who will film or shoot me than I do on the actual act of stunting. I want to just focus on my line. How dangerous it is that's all I should be focused on, even though I've got a radio slave in my hand. I'm trying to take a photo. And then I got a photo. I started selling photos. So there goes that middleman. And I'm not saying let's make photographers obsolete, because they're the creative ones. But if you can take a photo and you've got an eye for it, do it yourself, man. And then film. And I always had to hire like a 16-year-old. And by hire, I mean, you want to come and hang out? That's it. Here's an apple. And they would just press record. And that's how we did all the sandbox parts. It was either Jonas. Jonas doesn't know anything about cameras. The amount of cameras I put in his hand that he broke, he just handed it back. And he's like, I broke it. It's broken forever. Like, it was frustrating, but we were so lucky that we had to grind and work so hard to make those. Can you imagine sandbox movies if Kevin didn't have to always hire the new filmer? If he could hire like massive, well, it would have fucked the industry over because those filmers were really important to become bigger filmers. And it was a good stepping stone for them. But yeah, it's just do it yourself. And then what I did too, listen to this. I never liked team managers always following them around. I hated how like 8 riders would always like suck up to the team manager so they could get their breakfast put on the team manager's card. So I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to go eat where a team manager wants to eat. I'm a goddamn professional athlete. I need fuel. I will choose my own biscuit. So I would just go and I would submit receipts. I'm still going to get it paid for. So don't fuck their card. Get your own card and submit receipts and be really diligent with your accounts. And then you'll always know where you are. You'll know if you can go on the trip. I would go to my sponsors and say, I am doing a trip to Europe. I have already contacted SBC Magazine. They are giving me a feature story, 12 pages. I am taking the photos. I'm bringing Mike Vikowski with me. Poor bastard had to go everywhere with me. He probably wanted to get a real job. He's coming to film it for this other movie. Like, look at all this media, this one trip that only 2 people are going to go on. If I hurt myself, there's no story. And off we went. And we went from Norway through Sweden, through all the way through Europe, through Germany, and then Austria, Switzerland, Italy. And we did this amazing story. And the reason I wanted to do it, because I wanted to see Europe. So I'd contact the tourism bureaus at all these countries and say, hello, I'm Andrew Hardingham. I'm working with we get the hotels taken care of. You don't need your team managers for this stuff. You don't need their credit cards. We'd organize tickets at every single place. And so we did it on a shoestring, literally on a dime. We even got airlines to fly us down. You can do it. Trust me. Anything's possible if you just know how to deliver your story. And you have to back it up. You can't just get home and go, I fucking conned the world. You have to write that story. That was 2,000 words I'd have to write. Am I a writer? No. And then I'd have to produce all these photos. And luckily I was doing stuff, Jody, where people wanted to see it. It was like sketchy little lines. And sometimes it was just like dumb shit in a parking lot because it was raining and I jumped through a little fucking tube. But the photo.
But I like those shots. Don't overlook those shots. I love
them too. They were just easy to get.
I like when I see a snowboarder, they don't need, let's say if their choice of terrain is big mountain or lines, or gnarly lines, for instance, if it is raining and it's socked in and you can't go to the Alpine, I like seeing people get creative and like, well, I'm going to jump through these tight tree branches, or I'm going to just stall this, like, I don't know, broken down car in this back alley. Like, this
is think. There's a whole,
just get creative outside. Just go snowboarding. I don't like, that's why I like Gigi so much. Gigi always like looks like he could be left alone anywhere and he could come up with an idea and snowboard on kind of anything, which is like really sick.
You're absolutely right. Gigi was a perfect example of that. He would just climb up and shred like a tower going to a telephone pole. And it was like the one thing I remember. And I think it's so easy for him to get.
If we condense what you were saying about like what advice you would give to the next generation, I think it's like kids need to get creative and don't rely on someone else for your career to work out. You know what I mean? It seems to me that you had a very self-sufficient career. And if you weren't proactive, nothing was going to happen for you. So you were just constantly proactive.
And I would have been grumpier because I would have thought I deserved something that I didn't.
What about that? Let's touch on that. What about thinking you deserve something? I feel like that is a killer for people.
You're absolutely right. There's so many riders that because they're like the best in their group, that they're like, fuck, someone sent me some boards. I'm not even gonna fucking ride them because they didn't send me like 6 more. And it's like, no, you don't deserve one board. They're taking a risk on you. what are you selling? How are they getting their money back from sending you that board? So you have to look at yourself like you have to be part of that team. So when you're sponsored, you know, Von Zipper sent me glasses, and I would always say, you know, they sent me 10 pair of glasses. This was like a few years back. And I'd say, how can I get them that value back so that they'll give me 10 more the next time I need them for something? So I wanted to promote them to a level where they were happy with that. And they deserve that because they were helping me out, and it was coming out of their pocket. Nobody deserves anything unless you can provide a service back. And it should be greater, the same or greater than what they gave you. And then the next time it will be greater. And then pretty soon you'll be on Travis Rice's budget and you'll be like, yeah, I rule. But you're right. Nobody deserves anything in this world. And especially in snowboarding, like there is so many to choose from. So be very careful with you know, what you expect. But, you know, let's just quickly go back to like the think tank guys. You brought that up, the creativity. That's something that I rarely saw in riders, and they were really good riders. And this is why I called them replaceable. I'm being really mean with that. They're actually really good riders. They might not have balls. They haven't discovered the wisdom. They haven't ridden enough to know that they can do it. So I'd always see a lot of doubt out there. And, you know, I try to accept it as much as I could. But then you'd see these odd riders, and these are the standouts that I always saw. Like Andrew Jeeves was one of those guys where he could have very easily fallen into the, hey, let's go out and do the 1080 booter or the forearm step down. If a jump has a name, never hit it again in your life would be my recommendation to you. Why? What are you trying to do? Beat somebody? They could come back and beat your ass again because they were the first one to do it. They're obviously better than you. There's so much terrain out there. And when I saw people racing, we got to get to the forearm step down, I was like, what is this fucking, what are you talking about? That has been hit so many times. It's done. Someone should blow up that mountain before you guys fucking fall into this repetitive dipshittery. So I always hated that. And that's why I was like probably considered kind of an asshole. I was like, no, let's go over here. Look at all these fucking bumps. They could all be the forearm step down. They really could. But you need a fresh eye too. Once you're taught to look at everything like how the other pros hit it, and you can do better, or you can one up it, or you can fucking 10 down it, is normally the case, you are kind of screwed. So that's why you got to travel the world and you got to see new terrain, and not with anybody. Walk over, like ride a mountain on your own and look around and go, is it doable? If you think it's doable, it is doable. If you can point a finger at it, you can go, looks doable, it's fucking doable. Fikowski and I, we went to this place called Hochjock. It's in, it's just past St. Anton in Arlberg in Austria. And it was like, Sick. It was like Family Hill, like nobody had ever gone there. I'd never even heard of it. We went up, it was a big tram system, and we go up there and I was like, holy fuck, this place is wild, but no one even goes off 5 feet off the run. It's just powder everywhere for weeks after a snowfall, because they're just like doing wiggle turns and then going and sitting in the sun and drinking beer from like 10 a.m. onward. It's amazing. I love it over there. You should always be drunk by 12 in Europe, period. If you're not, you're doing it wrong. Side note. So we went up and we found this one face, and it had a chairlift going right through it. Nobody rode this chairlift because it was a really short run. And this was in Throw Your Panties. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many cliffs in here. There's so many features. No one rides it. It says closed, but in Europe, that doesn't mean closed. That just means do whatever you fucking want. You're in Europe. So we started doing it. And after like 2 amazing runs, it was rocky. It was gross. There was double cliffs everywhere. There was so much powder. There was sloughing. It was great. And then after the second run, the lifty started stopping the chair and walking out to watch each run. And then as soon as I'd be done, I'd ride up and it would be like, 10 steps back to the chair, and he'd start the chair up. And I'd get on and I'd be just by myself. And then I'd get to the top and he'd stop it and walk out and watch. And it was like, he'd never seen anyone ride that face. He even told us in broken German. He's like, that was Russian, I'm sorry. But it's so popular right now to be Russian. So we did that and we filmed it all day and we got, I'm not even joking you, 3 minutes of riding footage in one day. Like, you know how hard that is. You're lucky to get 10 seconds in a day filming. Like, I'm not even going to go into video parts. Everyone whines about how hard video parts are to get, but 3 minutes, that's a part. So it's just because we went there with fresh eyes, we looked at it, and because, you know, it wasn't a forum step down, nobody touched it, which was to our advantage. And we went over the backside, got crank fucking hammered on beers by noon, got a wicked sunburn, and did it all over again the next day. And to this day, I don't think I've ever been able to get 3 minutes of usable footage in 2 hours.
That's the
How cool is that?
that might be a record. I think Travis Rice maybe, or Nicholas Mueller might have kind of.
Oh, please. He's got millions of dollars in multiple angles.
You have Mike Fikowski.
I had Mike Fikowski with a brand new camera handed to him by Sansalone the day before the trip. That was when digital cusped. We also brought a 16 mil Bolex. And we were so, you know what was really cool? You can probably speak to this too. Were you in the film era?
The first few sandboxes, the first two I wasn't in. I think the first one I was in Flavor Country, and I got filmed by 116.
Yeah, 16
by Clay.
So then, yeah, so you were in it. So we're so.
But the next year, there was no more. Like, I never filmed that. My first year ever being filmed at, like, I would say, a professional like film in some manner sandbox. The year after was all.
What was it called? What was it called? Because what are there 18 sandbox movies?
Oh yeah, I think the first one that you did your crazy intro and stuff like that. Time Well Wasted, I think, was my first one.
There was Sandbox and Flavor Country, and
I was in Time Well Wasted, which is with the third. And that one, the intro is shot with everybody laying on the concrete.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
that was such a good idea. That was neat that Kevin did that.
Did Kevin have a lot of trust in you because you edited all your own parts? Was he like, holy fuck, this is going to be crazy? But then,
yeah, that's a good question, because Kevin and I was like really headstrong, and I thought it had to be done this way or not at all. And Kevin he was trying to make a marketable movie that he had a vision for Sandbox, and his vision actually worked. And I was still clinging on to the Skids days a little bit, which was the fight, fuck, party kind of, yeah, and then snowboard. But once I accepted Sandboxes, after I saw the first one, and Mikey HK had some influence on that one, and he just had like a really delicate style that cleaned it all up. And Kevin just knew, he's like Bridges too. He knows every rider, and he knows who's doing what and how they're doing. And he was a really good businessman. So I would just come in, I'd be like, I'm doing it my way. And Kevin would be like, I know, just do it your way. It's fine. We like your way. And every year I'd be like, I'm doing it my way, Kevin. And he's like, I know, we like your way. Don't worry about it. Do it your way. So, and then after like 3 years, I was like, I'm here to edit, because I'd always go out there in the summers and sit there for 10 days with Clay and Aaron Leland and edit with them. It was really cool.
I loved those intros, like with the camera, and you're trying to get everybody.
That was always in the basement. We'd just do that in the basement while it was while we were editing. And I'd be like, oh, I got an idea. Clay, take a break. We're going to the basement. We would do it on Kevin's like mini ramp down there and put a white sheet behind or something. And I'd write no tuna on my shirt or something stupid. And it was well received.
The tobacco company one, that line has always stood out to me. Like, what did you say again? That the something of the tobacco.
Snowboarding was invented by the tobacco companies.
Snowboarding was invented by the tobacco company. That was.
It was. Just because you guys stand now Illuminati, man. No, but also part of that whole all of that creativity was Fikowski too. He is a really funny fucking dude, and me and him just hanging out together, talking, drinking like multiple pots of coffee. We called it Think Juice because it like got you going and chatting and talking. And he came up with some fucking gold, but he's ultra introverted and I'm an extrovert. And don't ask me how we were best friends, but we were. And he was really creative. So he would just say these gold things, and then I'd point the camera at him and go, say that on camera, you know, never fucking works. And he'd be like, he just shut down. He'd be like, I don't know what to do with my hand. So early on, I learned Fickaus wasn't going to be in any of the movies unless he was drunk. And then, and so, but it was good to have like, it's like, you know, Will Ferrell's really funny, and I'm not comparing myself to that genius, but he has writers too. He has people that he bounces stuff off of, and it just grows into this amazing idea. And we had such little quick ideas, and I have books, like I can't let them go, Jody. Look at this. I still have them right beside me.
Well, these books are amazing.
These are
and those skits
ideas for sandbox movies.
I don't want you to undermine yourself when you say, like, you know, I don't want to compare myself to Will Ferrell, but like the way I look at it is like you are kind of the Will Ferrell, or one of them, a style of that.
I'm honored.
Great creativity and comedic relief during those movies. I feel like snowboarding,
that's what we
at
needed,
that point,
right?
It all felt the same, which I liked. I mean, I liked the ancient recipe, film a video, good footage, good riders. But like we were talking about earlier, I liked the personality, and you really broke up the video. I could only imagine being a 35-year-old, 40-year-old snowboarder in 2008 when your first parts were coming out in Sandbox, and being in that movie theater and seeing your part come on and being like, oh my God, finally. Like,
there's so much
something
energy.
that's different. Well, I'm laughing at a snowboard video right now. And like, it was genius. And I mean, a lot of people have tried that. It doesn't work though. It worked for you because you're actually funny. But like,
well, I often said I need to go and consult these guys. I remember when Wildcats did their comeback movie, I was like, fuck, they should have hired me. I could have told them half those jokes are stupid. Someone needed to that's what I should have been doing in the industry, is going, this is funny, this isn't, don't be a dipshit. Because also I have a punchable face. People either love me or they hate me. There's no in between. People fucking hate me. When they hate me for whatever fucking reason. And like, it's crazy. Or I get so much good positive feedback.
Like, you're held in high regard in Whistler. I feel like my group of friends were very,
I'm honored,
inspired, and I lived with Jeeves. I don't hear that very often. Oh, Andrew, literally, I would say you helped shape Jeeves's entire career. And then Jeeves and Heldor were pretty much, you know, on the same wavelength. And I'm imagining Heldor took a lot of inspiration too from,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yes.
Heldor's fucking, so is Jeeves. I remember once with Jeeves when we all sledded up, and I knew what was going to happen. Everyone was going to spaz out and try to find a booter to build. And I remember the whole team, like in this motion, started moving forward towards their sleds. And I grabbed like Jeeves's shirt and held him back and pulled him back and said, don't go there. You and me are going to go over here for a sec. We're going to talk. And then we looked at the exact opposite side of the slope. And this is like in Brandywine. This was the start of the backcountry Hollywood. And I go, look at that. That's fucking cool. Let's go fucking bang that. And he's like, yeah, that does look fucking way sweeter. And I remember that was it. As soon as he like just agreed without going, oh, I might just go and hit that one with them. And, oh, you mean the one fucking that you guys have hit every single fucking year? And it takes you about 3.5 hours to warm up on. After you've blown out the fucking landing, it's time to start going to 540. Come on, guys, let's fucking do something different here. And he just instantly was like, yes. And that's why I always connected with Jeeves. He's unique. And that's why Dustin was like that too. Like Jonas and I would just point out a rock ride and he'd go do it. We were like, what? People don't do rock rides. We're just joking.
Let's touch on Jonas, because we haven't talked about Jonas. Yeah, maybe just who is Jonas?
Jonas Gwynn. He's a guy that didn't have any marketing skills, which is why he failed. I I was at a Sasquatch music festival and I ran into his former K2 team manager. Like we're talking, he had K2 clickers. That's how long back this was. Step-in K2s. And he was like, I brought up Jonas. He's like, oh, Jonas, yeah, he used to ride for me. I had to fucking fire him. He was terrible. He'd call me up once a week and tell me everything wrong that K2 was doing. And how dumb we were. It was like, no, they're making a lot of money, so I don't think they're going to listen to you, Jonas. He needed a team manager. He even tried to hire me once in Vegas to be his team manager. And I was like way bigger a snowboarder than he was. And he's like, Andrew, I'm going to need you to just book me a flight home. And can you call Osiris? I left my shoes at the strip club. I'm going to need another pair of shoes from them. Just maybe have them bring them by the hotel. I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, this is how amazing he was, and he meant it. But he's like very creative as well, very competitive. We always were competitive, but in like a very friendly way. We always tried to outdo each other. That's why the rock rides got bigger and bigger and bigger. We had rules. We had rules and regulations. You had to start on snow and finish on snow. And you couldn't do certain things. You know, like everyone has rules like, you can't get it published unless you stick it. Like there's just like honor rules. There was honor rules with badass fucking lines too. It can't have ever been ridden. Like if a rock ride's been ridden, you never touch it again. There's no point. What are you gonna do? Fucking ride it switch? Don't be a dick. So that's why it gets driven harder and harder. And we were driving up the Jasper Parkway, which now is quite well known as like the backcountry mecca, other than Rogers Pass, for like roadside slipboarding. And it's badass Rockies, not a lot of snow, lots of shark teeth and champagne powder. So really high avalanche risks, all that stuff. So we were, you know, from a young age too, like we were probably 14, 15 when Greg Todd's like the upper, Scott Newsom, who now owns Eagle Pass Heli, Taylor, a whole bunch of the early like Louise pros that started the same time as Alan Clark. And I'm saying these names, but I don't know if a lot of people still know them. They were our seniors. So we would look at them and they would take us on these trips. And we were like 14, 15, 16, hiking up these tiny little couloirs and chutes, not telling our parents where we were because they would never let that happen probably. And then getting in avalanches. And that's how we learned about avalanches, not courses. They didn't have courses back then. It was just, if you get buried, you have to dig yourself out.
Okay, well, we can't make avalanches seem.
Sorry, we were talking about Jonas.
No, okay, we'll
they
go
are,
back
though.
to
They are,
Jonas in 1 second, but I do need to add that avalanches are serious and that you need to take a course and be educated, because definitely don't want to make them seem like they're funny.
They're going to kill you. Do we need to educate people on crack? Yes. Don't do it. Don't get in avalanches either. But you know, the funny thing is, like, of course you need avalanche training. Don't be an idiot, and don't go out without transceivers. Like, come on, really? I'm not the guy who should be telling people to be safe anyway, because I have a huge philosophy on that. And this is why I never worked well with heli guides, especially Europeans. Is always like, Andrew, where do you want to ride today? And I'd be like, oh, over there, there's some nice cliffs. I want to drop into those. Sorry, too dangerous. You could end up at the bottom. It's a terrain trap. And I'm like, fuck, who cares? Like, what am I here to do? Wrap myself in pillows and hang out in a white padded room? No, I want danger. So I'm not into moving around on 20-degree slopes, man. What are you doing here besides babysitting me? So I always wanted danger. The whole point of my experience was going and scaring myself. And because of the toxoplasty, it was hard. You had to get fucking weird to get scared. You had to do stuff that was just going to, you know, make a mess if you didn't do it right. And then the psychology came out, where then it's dissecting it, and then also dissecting yourself and figuring out who you are and if you're capable of accomplishing that. And there weren't a lot of stuff we pulled out of. And it wasn't avalanche because we pulled out of it. It was because it was way too heavy. And I only saw Jonas pull out of one rock ride ever, and it was because it had like 2 cliff step downs in the middle of it. And they were both over 10 feet. And it was like, it wasn't a soft rock. It wasn't like a slate rock. It was like this gritty rock that would just cheese grade you. So after the first one, if it pulled you a little off, and he said the top section was off axis, so it could sucked him over. And then he would have dropped that thing. If he would have gone down on his butt, it would have cheese graded him for like 40 feet. So that was the only one I saw him pull out of. But I pulled out of one that was like a 3 capper, like you drop off this one rock, and it was about probably a 30-foot cliff onto a rock. But it was like a really steep rock, so it would have worked out. But there was like a 2-inch shelf that was the wrong direction. It was pointed up. So if you put your elbow into that, you just blow everything out. And even though your nose might get over it, if you don't lift your nose up at the right time, you're just going to head first off for the next like 20 feet of rocks. So I pulled out of that one. There's lots of like, we weren't dumb. We weren't dummies, Jody.
Okay. Unbiasedly, who was the better rock rider?
Oh, I was way
or
better
Jonas?
Hands down.
Who?
I was way better than him, hands down.
Who was gnarlier at the rock ride?
He was way more squirrely. Like his style was squirrely. I'm going to tell him to listen to this. He doesn't know how to work phones, but I'll play it for him. And then he's going to go, no. He had a squirrely style, so it looked like he was doing crazier stuff than me, but he wasn't. And plus, he'll openly admit my biggest line was way bigger than his biggest line. Yeah, he'll openly admit that because he was there. There's one in Sandbox where I ride this really big piece of scree slope, but they were all balls of like really sharp, sticky rock. And I'm getting going so fast, nothing can stop me at this stage, including myself. And then the boulders start to get bigger and bigger and bigger until they're like head size. And I'm just leaning back. And you can see like I'm trying to like veer around the big boulders that are there that I didn't think I would go near, but I was like 3 feet away from them. I'm going like 100K an hour down this fucking rock ride. And Jonas, if you look really carefully, he's right in the middle with a 16 mil camera, because it's filmed from so far back by Scotty Fulmer. He had like a 35 mil camera, which was really neat. And Dan Hudson photographed it, but and I stuck it. I hit snow at the end. I was like, whoa, that was big. It was a fresh board out of the plastic, and then it was a fresh board right into the garbage after. And Jonas is right there in the middle. Like I must have missed him by 6 feet going down, just zoom. It was so cool. But that was the biggest one. That was up the Jasper Parkway as well. It's called Godzilla. It's right on the big switchback corner right below Bow Summit. If anyone drives it ever, you can look right up the mountain. You can see the rock ride. It's really cool.
Is it possible to channel this Alberta skill that people like you, Dustin, and Jonas have of being completely fearless? Like, can you channel it, or do you have to be born with it?
I think you just get born with the terrain and you make do, and maybe a percentage of riders succeed. Or maybe a percentage of riders are dumb enough to keep going, but we're not dumb. Or they don't go to college, so they don't quit, because college people are quitters. Everyone knows that.
Why are they quitters?
Because they quit snowboarding to go be a college person. Massive quitter.
I actually texted Jonas yesterday.
Jonas is great. We're gonna hang out here this week, I think.
Nice. He did text me back.
He's in Canada.
It was a very tough. He's very tough to text with. I don't think he texts people often.
Mm-mm.
But he did. I finally pried out a question from him, and he said to ask Andrew about his tattoo.
Tattoos, come on.
What?
This must have been just the other day, because I just got a tattoo, but I don't even believe in tattoos.
What?
I've never had a tattoo because I like being naked. That's why I watch Natural Selection naked, right? And now I can never be naked again because I got a tattoo. It's like clothing. So I got a tattoo. It's not a big deal, but he must have just because because he was like, where are you? I want to come visit. I'm like, no, I'm going to get a tattoo. He's like, you don't get tattoos. What's wrong with you? And then he proceeded to send me 18 photos of his tattoos on his body. I'm like, thanks for all the awesome muscle shots, buddy. But I don't know. Maybe he thinks it's funny because I got a bird tattooed on me. Put a bird on it. Watch a Portlandia episode. Thought it was funny, so I put a bird on it.
You have one tattoo and it's of a bird.
Yeah, it's just a bird.
Where'd you get the bird?
It's a kingfisher like me, but whatever. I like to fish.
Who's your favorite person to snowboard with?
Probably Jonas was, because he's the only one who would like wake up, fresh coffee line, drop a cliff. It wasn't like, let's do a warm-up run. It was like, no, let's get the fuck over there and get that thing fucking hammered out. I like that. It's like legs are cold and fucking just go for it.
This is so not me. Like I'm warm-up guy. I've hit the forum step down before.
Oh my God. And don't think that I'm negative about though. I like that the forum step down's there because it takes a whole bunch of riders off the hill. So you get more access, you get more. So like I needed all those jumps when I went to Whistler just to distract everybody.
But it is boring. I do agree. Now that I'm a bit
older, what I'm
older,
saying though, like not say it bitterly. It's still a fun jump. A jump, it's fun. Like Devitt, some of the greats hit that thing. It's not a bad jump.
No, it's the best jump ever. So if you're a young kid, you're like, of course you want to hit it so that your, the elders kind of look at you and go like, okay, that guy can hit that thing. But
I don't think the elders look at it.
Now I don't think that it does that anymore. Now I think it's like, for me, when I see somebody hit that, it does the opposite effect. I'm like, oh, I wish they found something different. Because
it's because you've wised up. You're wise now, and you know that the creativity doesn't come from repetitive jumping. And again, it's still an awesome jump. Like we hit park jumps all day long, and everyone's hit those. It's okay. It's just like if you want to be a standout and you want to like make it, don't do that. Do something else. Try maybe it takes building 3 jumps in new locations before one works. But what snowboarders are is we are physics professors. We have to figure out exactly speed versus pitch versus ratio and all this fucking shit versus the landing. And then we have to, on top of it, look at terrain traps. And if we're going to go head first into one, what to do and where safety crews are. And it's a whole process. So it's an adventure. But if you're doing the same stuff over and over, then you're taking all the adventure out of snowboarding. And if you're an adventure snowboarder like me, clearly you don't understand it. But it's not for me to understand what other people do. It's their life, and they can just fucking hit the forum step down till the end of time. I don't care.
I love that you said that you're an adventure snowboarder. That is such a good way to articulate your style.
Adventure. And I still want adventure.
Sansalone texted me a question, and which I thought was crazy. I didn't know this about you. He said, ask him about the season he spent without toe straps. He claimed you don't need them. Do you still ride with no toe straps?
I was always, what would you call this rider? Someone who wants to prove everybody else is wrong all the time. Stubborn. I was a stubborn rider. And my toe straps just fell off once at the top of Delirium Dive at Sunshine. It was a big backcountry run, out of bounds. You need a transceiver to get into the gate and all this. And I was like, I'm so sick of these toe straps. Anyway, fuck them. They're gone. I ripped the other one off, and I was with Jonas, and he took both of his off, and he said, if you're doing it, I'm doing it. Like, the competitive nature was so cool. And we both rode no toe straps all year, and that includes half pipe. We competed in half pipe events without toe straps. I remember Dwayne Weeb one day goes, dude, you don't have toe straps. Like, we were strapping in to do our runs and practice. And I'm like, yeah, you don't need them. You don't need them. It's urban legend. And it was so great. They were Tech 9s. Eastone always sent me Tech 9s, not because he thought I did anything for the company, but he just loved, I think, communicating with me once or twice a year. Eastone, the photographer.
Oh yeah.
I love him. He's like one of my favorite people in snowboarding. So we ripped them off and off we went. We had ankle straps the whole time. If we would have blown them, the boards would have been gone, but it was great. And You don't fucking need them because a good rider can ride anything. Hence, look, now we ride no boards for Christ's sake off bumps and cliffs and pillows, and you don't even need bindings. You don't even need ropes. We don't even rope no boards now. So you sure as hell don't need toe straps.
I feel like if you're going on a really hard heel edge, it's nice to have toe straps because it keeps.
Well, look, if you're in a slalom race, you're going to want them because it's going to keep you on your toes and your heels a lot better. There's no question that they add an element of precision to your riding. Otherwise, I would have taken the heel straps off too, but that would have just been silly. But yeah, you don't need it. You don't need them. You don't need a good board either. You don't need a 156. You can ride a 180 all year and still do amazing things with it. You can ride a 135, and with the exception of maybe a bit of powder, depending on how you T-bolt it, you can ride that all year if you know what you're doing. So don't fall back on your injuries and your equipment, because I ain't gonna buy it. You're either good or you're not. And if you're good, I want to see you.
Who do you think is riding really well these days? And do you follow snowboarding a lot? Do you not watch it anymore? Is there like this sense of non-connection because you're not like?
That's a good question, because I think about that. I still really love it and I'm passionate about it, but I don't ride as much anymore because I obviously have a bit of work to do. I was never really connected like you and a lot of like Sansalone and all those guys were. I didn't really know. And I don't want to sound like Dakota Fanning, where it's like, I don't watch movies, I'm just in them.
Yeah.
Not me at all. I just couldn't, I don't know if I couldn't keep up with it or if I just didn't care. I just was trying to do my own thing. If I was just too focused on like trying to survive as a professional. But nowadays I watch Supernaturals, and then I follow the gurus like the John Jacksons, because I also run into him from time to time on the river, and I fish with him, and his brother too. I really like his riding, but I don't think he rides a lot anymore, does he?
Yeah, Eric's riding lots.
No, Eric, yes. Sorry, yeah. I meant Eric. And John, I still follow. And then, yeah, like Carter, we interviewed Carter in our podcast, Hamburg.
Yeah.
It was third interview. He's that crazy rider from Jackson.
Yeah, he's a savage.
Yeah, savage, amazing. Apparently not marketable enough to sponsor, but way better than 99% of people out there. So I follow like guys like him, and I've got my feed. I'm a bit of a grammer. I don't know if you know that about me, but I've got like 6 different accounts, and I've got a whiskey festival account, a tequila festival account. I've got a meat account, just meat. I just wanted to give people the chance not to see food grams if they didn't like it, but I love meat. I love cutting it up, killing it. I love tearing its skin off, making delicious charcuterie out of it. So I wanted to have a meat gram. So I got a meat gram. It's called Hardingham's Meat. It's not my penis, I promise. You will not see any penis photos unless it belongs to an animal. And unless we're salting it and air drying it.
What's the best meat?
Bison, hands down.
Is it salty? Is it
no, all protein is the same. It's the fat that is the true decider. And you know, when people say gamey, there's no such thing as gamey. Gamey means you didn't clean the animal early enough and it tastes like shit. That's your fault. Wild boar isn't gamey. It's delicious. It's incredible. It tastes like pig, but like it just bites better. The fat is incredible. Look, Jonas Quinn phoning me as I live and breathe. Yeah, I always ask hunters that, like, what's your least favorite meat? And they'll say, oh, Canadian goose. I love Canadian goose. It's like dark red duck, like bison meat, but it's the fat. The fat is so good. I render it down, just smear it on my toast. Oh. I should be a fat fuck. I eat so much fat, like just jar it. I've got jars of fat and I go through like a jar a week. So good. Yeah. We shoot a pig every year too. And we do all sorts of amazing things, all the bacon and then all the fat, the back fat taste. I wrote a whole article for a whiskey magazine called Whiskey and Relish about fat. and how to render it with alcohol. Have you ever heard of fat washing?
No.
Okay, so you boil whiskey with fat. And what it does is there's congeners in whiskey. They're the fat molecules that will combine themselves with the fat molecules, with the whiskey molecules. And you basically put it in the freezer, you break the top because all the fat will go to the top. You break it, you pour your bourbon into some glasses, you have fat wash bourbon, and you can use bacon fat. And it just takes, you don't want to boil it because you'll lose your alcohol, but you just heat it up enough so the fat dissipates and gets down, and then you add your alcohol and you just let it boil for like not even a minute. And then you put it in a jar quick and just shake it and get everything going. Oh my God, bacon whiskey. Oh my God. Don't get me started on whiskey. We'll fall down a whole nother rabbit hole. I have a
Well, no, let's get started on whiskey. What's your favorite bottle of whiskey?
I feel like my snowboarding career was training me to run a Spirit Festival series. And now I do that.
What?
I have the Banff Whiskey, the Banff Whiskey Experience is my whiskey festival. We have 700 open bottles of whiskey for all to try. And once you're in, you get a glass, no tickets. You just go and you try anything. We had like 8 bottles over $5,000 that you can try. You never buy yourself that, so you got to sip it. We got all sorts of $8,000-9,000 bottles all over. We had 46 different distilleries from, actually 70 distilleries from around the world come to Banff, and we had 15 master classes where you get a flight in front of you, and you get spoken to by like the head distiller or the head blender, and it's like save 10 years and $10,000 figuring out what whiskey you like. You get it in 2 days. So obviously I'm hitting you with all my marketing.
No, let's do this. What's the name of that event and how much are the tickets?
Well, it's been postponed. I don't know if you've heard, there's a cold going around. It's called the Banff Whiskey Experience. It's always in September. I couldn't do it this year because of weddings. Okay. I don't even like weddings. And there's a COVID backlog of weddings. So all the venue space in Banff, which is a wedding town, everyone wants to get married in the mountains. I can't even get a place to host this amazing whiskey festival and get, people drunk. Isn't that sad?
Because people want to give people.
They want to get married, so I can't compete. It's like 10 times the price for venue space if you want it, because you're competing with wealthy dads. And
I was listening to a podcast on who's Lexi, Lexi Frederick, I think his name is. Anyways, he had a really interesting guest on his podcast, and he was talking about Lexi Friedman is the name of the podcast. And he had somebody really interesting on talking about how that diamonds are the most, like, the supply of them is there's so many sense. Yeah. And they're so, he's like, one day the supply will get leaked out of how many diamonds there really are, and they'll devalue all the diamonds, and everyone's going to be stuck with these worthless diamonds.
I love it.
And it's like a long episode.
So they can control it. That would make sense. Just like gold, just like everything, just like oil, what they're doing with oil right now.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And you think too, because of the backlog of weddings, you think diamonds would be like something that would be in demand right now. So the prices would go up. So just like cars, trailers, all the other COVID things, diamonds this is the worst time to get married. Everyone don't get married.
I mean, I'm all for getting married. I was just thinking about how I'm at the age now where so many of my friends are buying diamonds, and everyone's talking about how much money they're spending. And I'm like, damn, like you're spending 15 grand on a diamond for your girlfriend. I'm like, and then I listened to this podcast, and the guy's just talking about like how much of a waste of money it is, and like to not do that. And I was like,
you and me are going to get, if any of those girls listen to this, we're dead. But what kind of girl takes a fucking $15,000 gift from a man she's trying to start a fucking life with instead of a house? You selfish bitch. You'd rather he work for 3 to 10 more years to get to that point. That way, when he's 85, he can retire instead of 75. How can you fucking do that to your family? I would, if someone gave me they're way more than 15 half the time, a $20,000 diamond, I'd go, I fucking love you. I'll be right back. And I would go and I would take it right back and say, it didn't work out. Give him the cash back. I would take that 20, I would do a down payment, and I would slip a fucking door jamb on his finger, because you now have a house that you can grow a family in if that's what you want, or just not a family and just party and go to everything you want to do because you don't want kids. Hooray. But at least you have a house. You know, you get what I'm saying. I'm beating a dead horse here, Jody.
No way. I like that you're beating the dead horse.
For a little twinkly.
We're all, I would say that society is brainwashed to the max. And now there's like a promise ring, an engagement ring, and then like a 10-year ring. And it's like,
what the hell is marriage?
The diamond
promise.
The market for diamonds is just so big, and it's all done by like Hollywood movies, brainwashing everybody to think that we should just spend our money on this twinkly thing.
What do they say too? What's the marketing? 30% of your salary, annual salary, is what you're supposed to spend on a wedding ring. We're all products.
I don't know. I'm not going to say anything, but yeah,
we're all products of our environment, and we find different things to find important, I guess. And a lot of people say back home. You and me live in two of the only micro societies that very few people get married. You know, we have kids, we buy houses and businesses together. And I'm not saying again, nothing's wrong with marriage. I have some really great friends that got married. I love going to weddings. What a great party. But Banff and Whistler, it breeds a different kind of person. So you and me are probably not the people who should speak to weddings at the end of the day.
Yeah, good. I mean, I'm going to get married, but I definitely don't buy into the like spend more.
You already bought in, Jody. You just said it. You want to pay lawyers on two sides of a fucking partnership. That's it. That's the only difference.
I know.
Stop at the promise ring stage. And stop trying to impress your parents with a fancy word. Give her a promise ring. Take her on a nice trip. Buy a house.
Those are great.
Or buy another house if you're already there.
I mean, the podcast, just to clarify, and maybe put some sense into where that podcast leads. The whole podcast, I should bring it up. It's actually on my phone right now, and I'm finding it. Whiskey. It's number 284 on the Lexi Friedman podcast.
284. I love that.
284. And it's on Bitcoin and Austrian economics, but it's really interesting. And the guy
I'd take your opinion on podcasts because you're
perfect.
Submerged in them. I already wrote it down.
Lexi Friedman, 284. On that note, let's transition into 10 questions that I shuffle around and ask
Ooh la la.
Guests, and you can kind of elaborate on these however you see fit.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Number one, best style currently and back in the day.
In snowboarding.
I'm going to interrupt. It's very rude. I know people are like, Jody, shut up. You always interrupt. I want you to, because I feel like you have a unique outlook on snowboarding to begin with. I would like you to describe like what style means to you firstly, and what makes it, what makes
I would have done that
anyway.
I love the sound of my own voice, so I like to just keep going.
I love it too. I do.
Not a punchable face to you. Good.
No, you have a big heart.
Best style. When it comes to freestyle, because you can't just say best style because there's so many very important aspects of style. Freestyle, I'm a lover of Devin Walsh. I just think, call me, old school. He just had that. He put so much work into it, but he also did it on a really large scale, where he was doing big things. It wasn't just like, he doesn't shake his arms whatsoever in the air off a 30-foot thing. He was dropping big cliffs and landing switch. So I always loved his style. Plus he's an easy guy to appreciate because of who he is, because of his career. and because who he's become, his style is like a really easy one to like, because we do find ourselves deserting people we admire if they say the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Like we'll just throw people under the bus. Like, oh, I hate Ben Affleck now because he bitched at Bill Maher for something he said about somebody. I hate that. So let's go with Devin. He's managed a great career with beautiful style. Backcountry, Johan Olofsson still to this day has like this speed, hard, aggressive style that you can see. And I don't like smooth backcountry riders when they ride lines. And the reason smooth, they make it either look too easy or they're probably doing something too easy. If they're flailing and they're like, you can see they're working hard to survive, that says to me that they're actually on the edge. And if they're like throwing their arms like it's about to fucking pull them in, that means that was just the hardest thing that guy rode. And you know, because cameras have done such a good job at buttering, putting that nice smooth filter on everything. If they're struggling down a line, I don't even care if they're not the best rider. That means that's the best line they've ridden. And when you look at it, you can see that in them. When it comes to like urban stuff, Dan Breezy, I don't know how he does it, but he seems to like have perfect, like Devin Walshy, not wave his arms too much style while he does stuff that's very psychological. With high consequence, even though, let's be honest, he's only gapping 15 feet. Everyone can do that, but make it on top of a 6-story building. That's Dan. Great style. And I want to see it. And he just keeps upping it and upping it. So his actual, I guess I like the style of psychological riders the most. To answer your question, psychological style. Guys who can defeat their demons.
All right, number 2, favorite grab.
Favorite grab, I just gotta say it. I like the mute. Yes, and stiffy too. Do a mute stiffy. Yeah, I haven't even done one in so long. And also, I always call it a Craig Kelly indie, where you grab up by your front foot and then bone out the back leg when you go off cliffs, and where you're almost like going 90 and then you almost bone your tail out towards like you're landing and then bring it back. I always love those Craig Kelly indies. Front edge all the way. Fuck that back edge.
Grabbing inside the knee or outside the knee?
Inside the knee, because you have to like force the back knee out with your elbow to get
that outside the knee is just like all the kids now. Nobody spins with indie or front side grab anymore.
Inside?
Between the binding, everyone's grabbing outside the knee.
It's Japani, hey?
Yeah.
It's like the mute. I love the mute because it was Japani. You could do Japan, you could bend it right back. So I like it out there too. But yeah, I was never a method guy ever. Like I could grab them and stuff. I'd do them in the pipe, but I would never, I don't think I've had many photos published of a method ever. And there was like a time I was of the publication generation, and I was getting 60 photos a year and I didn't get a single method published.
Very
fuck the back edge. It doesn't watch me, I don't watch it. Okay. Dustin. That's all he grabs is method. Method of the week, Pat Bridges. Ooh. How about Indie of the week, Pat? Try that for a page. Asshole. Okay.
Okay, number 3. Biggest pet peeve.
Biggest pet peeve. Team managers that lead you on and tell you, oh, we're just a little late this year. Hey, we'll get you a contract next year. And then trust getting fucked over. And it didn't happen to me very often, but I saw it happen to a lot of other people. Oh, we're just going to try you on. Oh, you're going to make this kid prove himself. He's proved himself for 5 years. Just commit to the fucking bastard already, will you? That's how they milk it, though. That's how they steal from athletes. Sorry, one sec. Okay. Well, we got 5 minutes.
All right, perfect. I'll get through these fast then. Okay. Next question. One snowboard video that flew under the radar.
IR-77.
Oof, great movie.
I don't know if it flew under, but wow. Personality. Jake Price. And just to follow Lucas Huffman, who was just such a creative as well.
Yeah, that movie's so sick. Austin Smith's first part, Shandy, fucking Ender,
right.
so good.
Yeah. All like mature, thoughtful riders in it.
All right, number 5. I'm gonna try to get through these fast because we're trying to be timely here. Gnarliest backcountry rider.
Gnarliest backcountry rider is, I got a few dancing around in there, but it's Xavier. There's nothing can touch him. It's so terrifying. And there's not enough toxoplasmy in the world to make me ride some of those fucking lines. And it's not just like I'm a mini golf extreme rider. He is fucking top to bottom, 3,000, 10,000 for France deep valley rider. It's terrifying. I can't believe he does that. I hate him so much for being so good.
Okay. Number 6, first snowboard you owned.
The first one I bought off Jonathan Moore. I got back from Ayers Rock, Australia, mid-desert. I was 12 years old. Turned out all my friends stopped skiing and started snowboarding. So I was like, well, I'm going to snowboard. And Jonathan just moved to town from Colorado. And he was like, well, I'm selling the board, man. And $250. It was a Craig Kelly Micro Burton. I hate saying that, but it was. And I gave him 200 and he wouldn't give me the leash until I gave him the extra 50. He was holding it hostage. The leash. I needed that apparently.
Jonathan Moore.
Jonathan Moore's snowboard, yeah.
That's epic.
Board. That was my first board.
Fuck, that was dope. Why did you say that you hate to say that? Because it's a Burton or because it came with a leash?
Well, because I wanted to think of myself as like my next board was a luxury.
Oh, cool.
It's like and that's when I got my first taste of like being real and supporting small brands, and from that point on, it was like another luxury. And then it was Option when they were just first coming out, and then my fourth board was a free board when I got sponsored by Option. So
yeah, I like supporting the
Joyride
brands.
Was big back then, Lamar.
Yeah, but
I got the Burton.
All right, number 7. First thing you'd do if you won the lottery.
I would probably I always think this. I'd probably just buy a truck, drive it through the door of like the post office, and tell them that I want my fucking mail without showing you my ID now.
You've thought that through.
And then I would just make it
all right.
rain dollar bills.
Number 8.
Call the cops.
One piece of life advice other than don't get married.
Well, it starts with don't buy a diamond and then don't get married. If she takes the diamond, don't marry her. One piece of life advice: do it yourself and do it your way. Because if you believe in your own wits and your own intelligence, it's the fucking right way every time. If you're dumb, do it someone else's way.
That was perfect.
Not always.
Number 9, career highlight.
Career highlight, athletically, I would say the time I jump kicked the roof that was like 14 feet above the sidewalk. That was amazing. Landed on my feet too, Jody. If it's a snowboard career highlight, it was probably winning the West Beach Classic. Or no, I got second. Right behind Jason Brown, the Burton rider who started 7. And Sansalom got 3rd. Sorry, Sans. He won it the year before though, so he had his. And then that launched my first real pro contract with Option. So that's when I could actually quit my job at Rude Boys and be a rider. So that's why it's a highlight.
Can you tell us what your first contract was with Option? Do you care?
Yeah, no, I don't give a shit anymore. It was dog shit anyway. My first pro contract with Option was I had to ride NFA as well. They forced me out of 686, but they didn't pay me anyway, so it didn't matter. But I still pretended like, well, I've got this other, blah, 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 blah. And I believe it was $1,000 from Option a month and $1,000 from NFA.
Damn, that's
So I was
sick.
making $24,000 a year, and that was all year.
That's
And I tried to negotiate, and they said, you have 1 day to tell us yes or no. And I was like, fuck, I really wanted to negotiate. I thought I was a badass business
those
guy.
brands, man. They're so good at cornering us riders.
Just turned 18 too. I wasn't a hard ass yet. I was a nice person.
All right, the last question, maybe your least favorite, but who is the GOAT?
GOAT. You know, it would be too easy to say Travis just because he's good at everything, but the today's GOAT, yeah, that is a really hard question because there's like, I don't think there is a greatest of all time at anything, but there's greatest of a time. And Terrier was once that. Now he's just kind of a prick. Kevin Jones was that for a while. Then Travis Rice was that. But these days, I would have to say probably Sean Pettit. Yeah.
I like that Sean P, and he doesn't even like he just like does everything. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sean Pettit is the GOAT. That was
He's
so.
the GOAT. He really is, though. Like, come on. Show me another snowboarder that just went masterfully, took over skiing. I'll show you a shiny dollar because it doesn't exist. This guy's just like, I'm tired of one sport. I'm going to do them all. And then I'm going to do snowboarding without bindings better than most people too.
Sean P is the
Can you
GOAT.
imagine him with a tennis racket? God, what a beautiful specimen.
Yes. All right. I'm so hyped. You said Sean P.
Let's talk females though. We got goats there too.
Yeah, let's do that.
MFR was always my favorite. Creative thinker, hard worker, badass too. Before she was like all backcountry, she was like hitting rails and busting her fucking chops. Leanne Pelosi always had a black eye. I like that about her. I don't know if that makes her a goat, but it makes her a goddamn hard worker and stick with it. Plus she's about to pump out a baby, so that might be her biggest feat. We'll see. I don't think it hurts, actually. I think that's just a sympathy thing for women. Next.
Oh man, I have enjoyed immensely this last 2 hours. The last question is a Patreon question. You can sign up today for as little as a cup of coffee and support the show. Cody69, he asks, ask him about climbing the Banff National Park Administration building with a grappling hook and ECS.
I don't know what building you're talking about.
Oh yeah, totally.
It was probably a different building, but yeah, it's my office.
Nice.
That was my office for a lot of years. Only hammered. You couldn't climb whatever. It wasn't that building, but it was a building. You couldn't climb it sober. That was the only rule because you'd have a real conversation at the top.
Did you ever climb a building with a grappling hook though?
Well, we would climb down with the grappling hook because we'd just rappel hands. Just hands, we'd wrap it around our ass and just do like wicked 4-story. And it always terrified people. Like, because you just drag some poor little new kid to town up who's like, hey, Andrew, hey, I saw your movie pilot. That was fucking sweet. Oh, cool. Hey, why don't you party with us tonight? Hammered. Hey, guess what? You're not done. You're coming to the office with us later. Oh, cool. I'd love to see your office. Sucker. And then you climb up. And they'd be like, I don't know. I'm new to town. I'll lose my work visa. Shut up. Get up here. That's a good question. Good one, Cody. Clever boy.
Okay. I think that's. Do you have any final remarks or any shout outs to anybody you'd like to thank or where people
just
can find you?
Just you, Jody, because I really enjoyed talking to you. You're a really good interviewer. The conversation didn't stop once, and you've allowed me to express myself.
Andrew, I don't even know where to start other than I remember moving into a small house with my friend Chris, Anthony, and Andrew Jeeves, and you just stood out to us. And we were like, that guy brings so much light and joy and creativity and humor and savageness to snowboarding. And nobody has done it like you. No one will do it like you. You're one of a kind.
Thank you. Those are kind words.
And I think that out of everything we talked about is, I think, the most important thing. It's just like, if you could summarize the whole podcast, at least in my eyes, it's like, do shit as you want to do it, because it's already been done by everybody else. Like, you got to do it fully.
And hopefully, yeah. And I always wanted the parts to be able to be watched in 10 or 20 years and still have relevance.
I watched all of them. I watched every video part other than the skids parts. And I was like in complete joy, laughing to myself. And I was like, these are timeless.
And you know
The
what?
backside 7 mute grab on the forearm step down, it's been done by everybody.
Yes, but I tweaked it. Well, and we also should thank Kevin Sansalom for allowing us to showcase all those awesome videos. So if there's somebody I should thank, it's Kevin. And also, all the riders that have inspired us, and we all have our own list. So I won't go through it right now, but yeah.
Awesome.
Let's leave it there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Huge fan. Have a great day. Thanks for setting aside some time, man. And
let's
can't
chat
thank
again.
you enough. Thanks
Let's
for
chat
snowboarding.
Again. Thank you.
You rule.
All right.
Go film another little edit. Make another skit edit with some riding this year with Jonas, and I am happy to share it.
I was actually thinking about it. I was going to make a movie called Roadside. And
perfect.
It's for lazy fucks like me.
I'm coming in. I'm filming a clip for it. You can put me on a rock ride. I'll
send you a couple of these photos of these canyon gaps that I've been taking. You can have one. You got to claim it first.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Peace. Talk soon.
Waiting. Let's get it on.